This Tuesday afternoon. It is a beautiful day in the capital city, and we are at Yager Stadium, the home of the Washburn Ichabods. It is an exciting day at Washburn University today. The Envista Community Kickoff taking place tonight under the lights at Yager Stadium from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. We'll be here for 580 Sports Talk from 3 until 6. We'll be telling you all about this great event. And, of course, we'll be doing all the regular 580 Sports Talk stuff and taking in a little Washburn Ichabod football practice while we're at it. Great to have you along on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. Online at 580WIBW.com and on video. You are checking us out on video. You're either doing that on our Facebook page, WIBW News, or on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero and Brendan Brzezinski on location this afternoon. Spencer Dupuis back at the ranch up on Huntoon Hill, pushing buttons, turning dials, making sure we get on the air for you fine folks this afternoon. And Brendan, if this will get you your fire lit a little bit for Washburn football season. I know you've been out and about. You've gotten to see the guys a little bit, but what are we now, 9 days from the Turnpike Tussle to kick things off?
Yep, it'll be just 1 week from Thursday. Yours truly, Fletcher Terrell, Trenton Craxner are all going to be down at Welch Stadium in Emporia for the season opener. I know this team is just champing at the bit to get out there, man. Last season was tough for pretty much everyone on this team, just 2-9. So many injuries, and getting to talk to everyone at League Media Day, at Washburn Media Day over the last couple of weeks. I know this team is just itching to get back out there and to hit somebody other than their own guys. And it's kind of fun to see the quarterbacks rotating in. We've heard Craig Schurig on our show talk about how deep this quarterback room is and how much he's excited for the competition there. There's so much speed on this team, man. DJ Bell, Trey Richardson, just to name a couple of the guys who I think are going to play huge roles this year. Trey, of course, is a Topeka guy himself. So it's exciting to get out here. No, it's a big night for Washburn with the Envista Credit Union Community Kickoff tonight. So excited to be out here and excited for the season to finally get underway, even though it's going to get underway and then we're immediately going to stop in week 2 and then get after it again in week 3. Kind of a wonky schedule this year.
Yeah, the week 2 bye is kind of funky, but you take what you get when the schedule makers hand you your schedule. And I know these Ichabods are chomping at the bit to get right after a disappointing 2023 campaign. And what better way to start it than with a win on the road in the Turnpike Tussle? So these guys have something to prove in these Ichabod uniforms. They've got 9 days until it counts for real. And celebrating the coming of the new athletic season, not just for Washburn football, but all Washburn athletics, is tonight's Envista Community Kickoff out here at Yager Stadium. Again, it's from 6 until 8. This is a great family event, an opportunity, a perfect evening for families in the Topeka community to get up close and personal with Washburn athletes and be a part of the exciting Washburn athletics community, creating lasting memories with exciting activities down on the Yager Stadium playing surface, and, of course, some delicious food with some great food trucks. This is a sneaky, great food truck city. I think if you live here, it's nothing sneaky about it because you see them out and about all over the place. But if you're not in Topeka on a daily basis, you may not know, you may not be as aware as you need to be. This is a good food truck city. And there are going to be some great food trucks, some fine selections out here today at Yager Stadium. You can play down on the field, mingle with your favorite Washburn athletes, enjoy photo opportunities, fun jumps, even a money grab machine. Challenge your friends and family to a game of tic-tac-toe, cornhole, giant Jenga, and other fun activities. And here's the best part, folks, entirely free to attend. Just get the family together, get the kiddos together, come on out, bring some dollar bills for the food trucks, and come and celebrate the coming of a new Washburn athletic season here tonight at Yager Stadium from 6 to 8.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be so much fun. It's awesome that this is going on, too. And what a great way to get everybody ready for the start of the athletics season for Washburn. Because it's not just football, like you mentioned. Little Birdie might have told you the Washburn women's soccer team, number 2 in the entire country going into this year. So many players from last year's national runner-up will be back. Obviously, Washburn volleyball is always a power team on this campus. So it's going to be fun to see all the coaches, to see all the athletes. So come on out, have a little fun. 6 to 8 tonight right here at Yager Stadium, right where we're sitting. There's going to be all sorts of activities tonight.
Yeah. So we are actually on the concourse. We're right over by the bod shop. On the press box side, the west side of Yager Stadium. The entrance for everything, I believe, is going to be down on the east side, or I guess that would be the southeast corner of Yager Stadium is where they'll be having people enter for the event that is, again, tonight from 6 until 8. Meanwhile, here on 580 Sports Talk today, we got a great show planned for you. The Royals are red hot. 5 straight wins for the boys in blue. Gaining ground on the field last night. It was a really good night of scoreboard watching. Seth Lugo, terrific. Another dinger for Paul DeYoung, or maybe it's Paul DeDong, who can say.
Nice.
Nice win for the Royals last night, 5-3 over the Los Angeles Angels. We'll talk about that. Lots of Chiefs stuff to get into today. A comment from Steve Spagnuolo earlier today that I found to be interesting and maybe a little bit troubling in some respects. We'll discuss that. Also, Bill Barnwell of ESPN, we cite his work a lot on this show. He's got his list of teams he expects to improve on last year's win totals and to have their win totals diminished from where they were last year. And the Chiefs are on the side of the ledger you want them to be on if you're a Chiefs fan. So we've got plenty of Chiefs football to talk about today. And, of course, we'll be joined by Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, later on in the program. He'll join us at 5:25 for another training camp report brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. So lots of great Chiefs content for the Kingdom today on 580 Sports Talk. And we're talking KU football today. Yours truly was at a KU football media today. Got a chance to hear from the coaches. I had to duck out before we could talk to the players. Players are actually talking, I think, right now. Out in Lawrence, which you can see the scheduling dilemma that would have put us in. But did get a chance to hear from Lance Leipold and the coordinators. Some interesting takeaways, I thought, from all 3 coaches who spoke today, Leipold, Grimes, and Borland. And we'll break those things down. And we'll get Michael Swain's perspective. He was front row center today. I didn't have nearly as good a seat as Michael Swain for the press availability.
Where do you sit? When you're talking to a coach, you're covering a game after the game, where are you sitting?
It depends. If I'm not a regular and I don't feel like I'm going to have a whole lot to ask that's not already going to be covered by the regular press corps, I'll sit second or third row. I was in the third row today. If I'm like at a K-State game where you typically there a little bit more often than I'm at KU, I'll go first row, but kind of on the wing a little bit. Let the main faces have the center stage. Like Michael Swain, Fog.net, front row center, man, and that's where he deserves to be.
I generally, and again, I have more so covered KU than I have K-State, although I've been to plenty of K-State basketball games. I'm much more likely to be second row from the back as opposed to second row from the front. I usually let people like Shea Wildeboer sit up front and ask questions because I know coaches will probably be sick by the time they're done answering those questions anyway. So then I feel like, hey, all my content's done.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. So that was I was third row center, and did ask Jeff Grimes a question about his offensive line. We'll talk about that coming up later on. And again, we'll get Michael Swain's perspective. Jayhawk Weekly from Michael Swain. That's coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Plus all the other features you come to know and love from 580 Sports Talk. We got What Is Wrong With You coming in the 4 o'clock hour. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Little random question Tuesday later on this hour, and so much more here today. Thanks for being with us. You can still hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. You can also chime in on the live chat function on YouTube. If you're watching live with us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, then you are able to interact with other listeners and with your hosts as we go along over the next 3 hours. You can also send us comments if you're watching on Facebook, WIBW News. We're happy to respond to those as well.
You can see my hair, which is just an absolute beast today. It is a disaster. It is a disaster.
Is it a TikTok haircut o'clock for Brendan Dworzinski?
Yeah, it's bad. It's getting rough. Well, I already knew that because I got the classic "Are you getting a haircut soon?" from my wife the other day, which was actually code for "you should have gotten it yesterday." But that's fine. It happens sometimes.
No,
we will be paying a visit to the old snip soon.
Yes, you and me both. I may not be in as dire need of it as you.
Here's the difference, though. If you don't watch our video stream and don't get to see us, our headshot every single day, or you haven't seen us in person, long hair for me and long hair for Dan are like two different stratospheres here.
That's true.
I have more hair like in the front right corner of my head. And it's not that you're like balding. I just have an immense amount of
clarifying
hair.
that,
Yeah, no, I just have a lot of
Thank
hair.
you for clearing that up very much. My hairline appreciates it. No, hairline
No,
still holds
you've
strong.
got full coverage.
Yeah,
like, you're fine.
We're not pushing it back. I just keep it tight. Like I keep it tight, not military tight, but I keep it tight. And I know I need one when I start to get a little fuzzy around, like like my neck, back of my ears, the back of the neck starts looking a little rough. That's when I know it's time to get it cleaned up, and just in time for football season too.
I'm just trying to look like Mikey Ramone.
You will look good in all those press boxes.
Oh yeah,
you want to look good. Trevor asked where we get our haircut. Whoever sends me a coupon, Trevor, is typically where I go. I've been known to frequent the Great Clips or the Sports Clips or wherever. I don't have a person in town. I don't have a guy or a gal yet.
No, I still, I lived in Lawrence for so long. I still get my haircut in Lawrence. I have not found a Topeka barber yet. I know we've got many. I just am used to, I walk in, I say, get it above the ears. It's pretty cheap. And then I come back home. So that's where I'm still sticking out. I will not tell you where, but I will tell you it's a barber and they are downtown.
There you go.
I also found out recently that Trenton and I have the same barber.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
How about that? Let's talk some sports, shall we? Here in 580 Sports Talk, the Royals winners last night, 5-3. Not all three of us. Spencer said 80 wins for the Royals.
I think he was at 81. I think he
might
put
have
them
been
at 500.
right at 500. Because there was like a 6-win split. You were on the low end, 75. I said 78. Spencer said 81. Friends, the Royals have 70 wins. And we're 2 weeks out from Labor Day.
Yep.
The Royals are 70-55. They have matched their season high games over 500 after last night's 5-3 win. What was most encouraging for you from that game last night? Was it Paul DeJong continuing to swing a good bat and kind of making third base his own, or was it what we saw from Seth Lugo over 7 strong innings?
I think the most encouraging has to be Lugo and the fact that he bounced back. And look, the Angels stink. That roster is bad. Their lineup is bad. We talked about that throughout the show yesterday. So it's not like he was going up against the 27 Yankees out there.
Right.
But the fact that after his 2 worst starts of the year, and really the first time all season that he's gone back-to-back outings where he has struggled, he's been a bounce-back guy throughout the year. To see him go out there and put together a real gem of an outing. What were the final numbers? 2 earned runs over 7 innings, struck out 8, did walk a few guys, whatever. You live with it when you're striking out that many. I think, the most happy to see him have a bounce back effort like that. But you also mentioned DeJong, and I know there was a little more hand wringing over that trade, the very busy trade deadline day for the Royals. Everybody was over the moon about the Urseg deal, especially when we found out the Royals didn't really give up that much to get him. I did see more. Well, why with DeJong? I loved that move right off the rip, to be honest with you. A guy with an OPS plus, even slightly below league average, is still better than most of this lineup has had all year. And he's got pop, man. He's got power. And to see that come to fruition, to see it be functional power in a game like that, really important, really impressive. So I think those would be the top 2, but I think Lugo's got to get the number 1, right? I mean, how much time have we spent in the last 10 days saying, oh, the number of innings pitched, and he doesn't quite have the same spin. He doesn't quite have the same velo. He went out there and he dominated, and that's what you want to see from him.
Well, that's the thing. He has largely had the same spin and the same velocity, which is why I thought a bounce back was possible. This was a good lineup to get right against, as you said. It's just not real potent. They've got a rookie with, I think that last night was his 3rd career game hitting in the cleanup spot. They got another rookie hitting 3rd. Logan O'Hoppe might be their best hitter, certainly one of their 2 best.
I don't think there's any maybe about
they
it.
They bat
honestly.
him 6th for some reason. They bat him behind Anthony Rendon. I don't know what that's all about, but it's not a great lineup, but it was encouraging to see Lugo getting ahead of hitters, getting back to the strikeout. We had talked about how those numbers were the most concerning numbers that were dropping, the strikeout numbers. He strikes out 8 over 7 innings last night. The 2 runs that scored, it kind of happened in a hurry. So I'm not going to hammer on Matt Cottrero for not going and giving the hook to Lugo more immediately after he gave up that 2-run home run or 2-run double to Joe Adell. He got Taylor Ward with the very next pitch. There was action in the bullpen following that. They were able to hold what at that point then was a 1-run lead and then build it back to 3 thanks to the 2-run double by Salvador Perez, which why do you throw Sal a fastball in an RBI opportunity unless you're down in the count 3-0, 3-1, and you ain't got a choice? Why would you throw Salvador Perez a fastball that
I still wouldn't
get
do
on
it.
top of?
I know he's walked more this year. I'm still not throwing him a fastball in that count. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know. He tomahawked that fastball up down the left field line for a 2-run double restored. What was at the time the 3-run advantage. Chris Bubich gave up a home run to the first guy he faced in the 8th. He got jumped by their best hitter, Zach Neto. Threw a first pitch fastball, just kind of get me over, ease me into the outing, and Zach Neto's like, ease into this. And sometimes you get jumped like that. Like I wasn't, that wasn't like a oh no, Chris Bubich doesn't have it tonight kind of thing. He very obviously had it. He struck out 2 of the next 3 hitters. I was in favor of him starting the 8th. I would have really have liked to have seen him pitch 2 innings last night. Instead, in a 2-run game, John Schreiber, first game back from the injured list. He was activated yesterday, comes in for a save opportunity. And I about plotzed. I could not believe what I was seeing when it was Schreiber jogging in from the bullpen. Now, I wasn't expecting Ursek. He got 5 outs on Sunday. I figured he'd be down. I wasn't expecting Sam Long. Sam Long threw a lot of pitches on Sunday, too. I thought that Matt Couturo would try to stay away from him as well. I did not imagine that John Schreiber would be the guy to get the save opportunity. And frankly, the Royals are lucky that they survived it. Oh, Hoppy hit a seed for that base hit that got by Bobby Witt Jr. diving deep in the hole. Then Brandon Drury hit into a double play. His miserable year continues. You mentioned that his OPS is below 5, and he produced like a guy with an OPS below 5 in that spot. And then the a-hole hitter Moniak hit a seed that Vinny Pasquantino made a nice leaping grab on. That was 2 hard hit balls by the lefties off of the righty Schreiber, which is kind of what you expect. But the Royals were able to, despite the bad process, I did not love, like, I understand managers love to get, especially when it's a veteran reliever, somebody they generally trust. You want to get them into a game pretty quick after they come back from the injured list. You don't want to wait for the right spot. You just want to get them in. You want to get them back facing big league hitters. You want to get them back comfortable. And Schreiber, like him or not, he's going to be a guy the Royals need, because I mentioned Ursek, I mentioned Long, I mentioned Bubich. Right now, that's the circle of trust. Like, they're going to need a 4th guy in a situation like last night. And if Schreiber can return to his April form and be that guy, that would be wonderful. I didn't think it was great last night, but it was good enough to lock down the save. And it was a really, really good night elsewhere for the Royals. Red Sox blow a late lead and get walked off. Minnesota loses in San Diego. That game was on TV. I don't know if you folks knew.
It was, yeah.
That game was on FS1 last night. So I flipped over to that game. They're playing in San Diego. It was a late first pitch. So it's West Coast baseball. And I'm watching that game, and it strikes me as I'm watching that game, man, I have missed this. Because when was the last time you watched another baseball game that did not involve your favorite team, or in our cases, the team that we're covering, and the result mattered? The result was germane to anything beyond those 2 teams. Like last night, I'm on the edge of my seat rooting for Michael King to set down that Twins lineup. I'm getting nervous when Robert Suarez allows a base runner and a run there in the 9th. And I'm fired up when the Padres finish off that 5-3 win, because it means that mathematically the Royals and the Twins are tied for 2nd place in the Central Division, and they are just 2.5 games behind idle Cleveland. Trevor asked, can they win the division at this point? You bet your bippy they can win the division at this point. It's all there. We have spent so much time, Brendan, looking over our shoulder, right? Looking back at Boston, looking back at Houston and Seattle, the West race, looking back at Tampa Bay there for a time and thinking, man, I hope they don't catch the Royals. Now everybody else is looking at the Royals, and the objects in the mirror wearing blue are closer than they appear to Minnesota, to Cleveland. Hell, Baltimore lost last night. Why not go get the number 1 wild card? Why not go have the best damn record in the American League? It's all there for the Royals. The way they're playing right now, they're the hunters.
It's an exciting spot to be in, without question. I think this is... I want to be careful with how I assign the pleasure of this kind of run here, because I do think the Royals deserve credit because they're playing really well. They've won a bunch of games recently. I think they're going to end up winning the series against the Angels, probably without much of a fight from Los Angeles. I also think this is kind of the personification of what we thought these other 2 teams ahead of them in the AL Central were going to be this year, because the Guardians had outperformed a lot of what the expectations were, and even their metrics started to catch up by the middle of the season, because at the beginning of the year, their run differential was barely over even, and he thought, okay, they're going to come crashing back down. Well, they really haven't, so you have to give them credit. None of us thought the Twins were impressive. I mean, even at the beginning of the year, when Spencer picked them to win 81 games, I think you said 76, 77. What was your number, Dan?
78.
78 games, and I was all the way down to 75. I think even then we all said there's something to be had here because the Twins are not impressive to anyone. I was never buying the Tigers. Very obvious by the future I placed on them to go under 81.5 wins this year. I don't think anyone expected the Guardians to be nearly this good. And over the long haul, what normally happens from a probability standpoint, you sink, water finds its level, as Bill Self will say. You have the regression to the mean. You get back to where you originally expected to be, where the metrics indicated you would fall, and maybe that's where the Twins are falling right now. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say this team is going to get to the number one wild card spot. I won't go out on a limb and say they win the AL Central. I will go out on a limb, though, a slightly stronger limb, and say they do pass the Twins. This is the Twins team I thought we were going to see this year. There's nothing all that impressive. There's a couple blue chip guys, but there's nothing that makes me say, oh God, look out for the Twins. It's almost the end. It's almost start of October. The Twins are about to fold like cheap paper anyway. Like they're like a bad chaise lounge. They're going to crumple up. They're going to break apart like they do every year. And I can't wait for them to play the Yankees. They will get swept and they will go away, and we'll remember, yes, this is the Minnesota Twins we've come to know and love, unless you are from Minnesota, in which case they probably give you either heartburn or, ideation.
The metric that we always look at, the simplest one to measure the level of dominance that you have imposed on your opponent, is run differential. The Kansas City Royals have the second best run differential, not in the Central, not in the American League, in all of baseball. They have the second greatest difference between the runs they have scored and the runs they have allowed. And I know the detractors will point to the 13 games against the White Sox and say, well, what are they without that? Well, everybody gets to play bad teams. The Royals took care of their business. They didn't play with their food. They cleaned their plate against the White Sox in those 13 games. You can't ding them for that. Those games are on the board. Those games count. And even though that's a wretched team, they're big leaguers and they practice too. They get uniforms and paychecks, the whole shebang. So I don't discount that. I look at the big picture this season, and it tells me the Royals not only belong in the conversation, they are a bigger part of that conversation than I think people outside Kansas City are even aware of. The second best run differential in baseball. The playoff odds now on Fangraphs are just shy of 80%. If you go to Baseball Reference, they are 91.7% to make the playoffs. It's all right there. Forget looking over your shoulder. Let's start scoreboard watching Minnesota. Let's start scoreboard watching Cleveland. Let's have a damn good time of it because, look, you've waited a long time for this, Royals fans. You have waited a very long time for these games to matter like this. And we're having a good time watching them. And last night, they win their fifth consecutive ball game, beating the Angels 5-3. They'll go for a series win and a six-pack of wins in a row tonight. 7:10 the first pitch, 6:30 pregame, so we'll have some overtime on 580 Sports Talk before we hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network here on 580 WIBW. We got to take our first break. When we come back, we'll do a little Random Question Tuesday. Spencer's in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Brendan and I are live at Yager Stadium at Washburn University. It's the Envista Community Kickoff tonight from 6 until 8. Come on out, bring the family, enjoy the food trucks, get to know your Washburn Ichabods, and play some games and have a good time out here at Yager Stadium tonight. We're back after this on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk, just getting rolling on this Tuesday. Two great guests coming up later on the show. Michael Swain of Fog.net for Jayhawk Weekly at 4:35, and of course, the great Mitch Holthus at 5:25 for another training camp report. Right now, we got a little random question Tuesday, and this is inspired by something I saw on Twitter last night. As you guys may be aware, there is a major political convention going on in the city of Chicago at the United Center, home of the Bulls and the Blackhawks.
Yes.
So
you wouldn't know that, though. They took the banners down.
They did. They took down all the Bulls banners.
All we have for those franchises right now are the memories of Michael Jordan and I guess Bobby Hull. But
Stan Mikita.
Yeah, we don't talk about Bobby Hull anymore.
No,
but yeah,
we really don't.
Come on, leave those up.
Yeah, what could be? Nothing is more inspiring than the 72-10 Bulls, right?
Correct.
That lifts spirits and all that stuff. Anyway, there's a hockey bar not far from the United Center. It's called the Barn, and somebody has discovered on Twitter that they have a drink at the Barn that is $15 a pop, and it is gin and blue Powerade with a cucumber and lemon garnish. And I got to be honest, I bet that's delicious. $15 is a little steep for me, but like blue Powerade's good.
It is.
And I don't mind the taste of gin. I think that's a totally fine cocktail. I think it's wild that they're $15 is the ask, but anyhow, got me thinking about mixed drinks. And this does not have to just be an alcohol question. Brendan, I know you don't drink, never have, but we've all going back to being 6 years old and doing the suicide at the Fuddruckers, right? And putting every kind of soda into your cup and seeing how that tastes all together. We've all mixed a drink before. Put one drink in another drink. What I am asking, gentlemen, is what is the worst mixed drink you've ever mixed? What is the worst thing, the worst concoction that you have ever devised?
Ooh, that's a good question. So this is tough because I don't really drink pop. But I did for a while, like when I would go out, try to mix caffeinated beverages. Well, I don't really consume caffeine anyway, but like carbonated beverages with other just mixers to try to keep the energy up. All of them were bad. Like you put Mountain Dew in anything, it's just bad. It doesn't taste good. Like Code Red doesn't mix with anything. I will give you the example for someone else who's not here. Our former co-host, Jake Laban. We went out and got lunch one time, and it might have even just been Code Red, but he tried it at 30 whatever years old, and he was like, dude, this ruined my whole day. This is disgusting. This is terrible.
I was there.
Yeah, you mix anything with that, it's not going to end well, especially for someone like me who generally doesn't drink pop anyway.
I tried mixing it's called Zevia, zero sugar, like cola and sodas. Recently wanted to try them out, so I got like a thing from Sam's, and I was like, you know what, let's see what this tastes like. The cola one tastes like with bourbon, because it was cola. It in fact tasted gross. 0 out of 10 would recommend.
So the bourbon was real, but the soda was not.
Yes.
But if you tried like Coke and fake bourbon, I wonder if that would have been better.
Sounds like a Mitch Hedberg joke.
I think it basically is. It's the fake pot with a guy with Peter Frampton, or a real pot with a guy who looks like Peter Frampton.
I've done that way more.
I've done that one way more. Yeah, it's basically the same joke. The correct answer for me would be Diet, A&W root beer, and Malibu rum.
Oh,
that was at a.
How old were you when you consumed that? Out of curiosity,
I would have been 22.
Okay, yeah.
I was at a blues music festival in Ten Sleep, Wyoming, and it was what I was encouraged to drink it by a woman. That was all she had.
Okay, yeah, that's all we need to know.
That was all she had, and I gladly partook.
I have one that I mixed that actually tasted good. Pink Whitney, which is a New Amsterdam vodka, a hockey thing for Barstool Sports, and then the Smirnoff Red, White, and Berry. Mixed that with Sprite, and it actually tasted good.
Huh? So Sprite and the pink lemonade.
Yeah, along with a berry flavor. It was like a berry pink lemonade flavor. It was actually good. Multiple people told me it was good.
I could see that working.
Yeah.
All right. Brendan, you have a random question?
Yeah, give me a narrative. What is a narrative that has become very popular that is missing important context. This is inspired by a rant Tom Brady went on yesterday. I guess he was a guest on Stephen A. Smith's show, and he was going on this whole thing about how we're screwing over young quarterbacks because we're forcing them to play too early in their career. I was at Michigan for 5 years, I being Tom Brady. I developed when I was in New England, and that helped me. We're screwing over all these other quarterbacks. Well, Tom, that's because you were the 200th or 199th overall pick. No one thought you were going to be anything more than a water boy. You also were behind a legitimately great quarterback for the era in Drew Bledsoe, a 4-time Pro Bowler, and also played for the greatest coach of all time. So I don't really think it's fair to compare that to Spencer. How about this? Jaden Daniels, who is playing for a team that has been really awful for a long time, who has no better option. So I think that is missing a lot of context. But of course, because it's Tom Brady, you got every single dude named Dale who's from, Southie saying, oh, Tommy touchdown. What a great take out there, Tommy. Great. Wish you come back, GOAT.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. I do enjoy Boston. Not maybe the people, but I did enjoy visiting Boston. So what is a narrative that has become popular that is missing important context?
Probably every NBA Twitter argument.
Well, that's certainly true.
Yeah,
that's like literally arguing with children, though. Like the NBA caters its product to people with bedtimes, which is generally not conducive to great arguments.
Which you would think that people with bedtimes can't hardly watch the Lakers, and yet a lot of Laker fans out there, a lot of people that insist that Kobe Bryant is the GOAT, even though he was never once the best player in the entire NBA. Not once. Nope. Was Kobe Bryant ever the best player in the league? Not one time.
That's correct.
Never. It went from Jordan,
Michael,
to Shaq, to Duncan, to LeBron. It was never Kobe. Never, never, not once was it Kobe Bryant.
That's fair.
So
I'll listen to that one. Spencer, you got one?
I can't really think of one. I mean, like that Tom Brady one, I 100% agree with what you're saying there. It's not one thing isn't the same for everyone.
Right, exactly. He also had some bit about how they don't develop kids in college anymore because they're teams, they're not programs, you don't have development. Brother, I invite you to come watch a game in Lawrence, Kansas. I invite you to come watch a game in Manhattan, Kansas, and tell me those aren't programs. Like, just because you only know 3 college teams does not mean that everybody is doing it the exact same way.
It's really not promising for the future of of Tom Brady as Take Smith, if this is what we're getting from him.
He's going to stink, man.
I don't think it's going to be very good on television. I don't think we're going to enjoy it. Anyway, Spencer, do you have a random question for us today?
Yes. So this comes from the nightly walks that my girlfriend and I have started taking. And we walk up and around near Skyline Park, if anybody knows where that is in the Topeka area. Not to give away where I live. But there's a sign there,
doxed.
a nice bright sign that says Skyline Park. And I turned over to her the other night and I said, is that sign new? Because we didn't go Wednesday night because I was here working during the storms. And then we went on Sunday night and I was like, is that new? She goes, no, that's been there for a while. So what thing have you not noticed, but has been there for a while lately?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. I can give you one just today. I went down to Lawrence for KU Football Media Day today. And there's this post, almost like a totem, but not quite, that sits there on McDonald before you go up the hill and onto, what does it become?
It becomes Iowa.
It becomes Iowa. There's a totem, a big post.
Yep.
And I swear to God,
kind of where you turn for the hospital.
Yeah, I've never seen it before. Never in my life.
That's a good one. I was in Overland Park just the other day, and we drove by a Best Buy, and I said, has that always been there? And my wife was like, well, they're not making new Best Buys.
They aren't doing that.
So, yes, it in fact has always been there.
John with a great answer in the YouTube live chat. Dishes on the counter. I never noticed those.
That's a great one.
That's a good answer. Dirty dishes.
I will say I still, in our house, notice new things every single day. Oh, we have that? Oh, we were just getting a room rehabbed. It just got finished up this morning. And I was like, oh, this doesn't look at all like I thought it looked. We've lived here for 6 months. How did I not notice any of these things? That's a very constant thing now in our home.
Good stuff on the Random Question Tuesday front. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk, live on location at Yager Stadium at Washburn University tonight. The Envista Community Kickoff from 6 until 8. Get up close and personal with Washburn athletes and be a part of the exciting Washburn athletics community in this perfect evening for families in the Topeka community with games, food trucks, and so much more from 6 until 8 tonight. Free to attend out here at Yager Stadium. We're going to step aside for a break. When we come back, some impressions from KU Football Media Day. I was there. I'll tell you what I heard and what it made me think. And we'll talk some KU football on the other side of this time out here on 580 Sports Talk. 346 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Brendan live at Yager Stadium at Washburn University. We're watching the wide receivers get some work in down below.
I'm so excited for this group, man. I know this team has some stuff to work on. We just saw an incredible catch, literally as we were talking about it moments ago. I got to make sure I got all my numbers accurate. Cortland Dalton, that's actually a defensive back who just made an unbelievable catch one-handed, plucking it out of the air, pinning it against his helmet. I'm so excited for the skill positions for this team, man. I know there's a lot of work this Washburn team, the Coach Cricksher's group has to do this year, but, man, there is so much talent at wide receiver and tight end for this group.
Absolutely. Running back, too.
Yeah.
I think, the skill guys, if they can get some room to work their magic, I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. And they're going to light up the scoreboard here at Yager Stadium throughout the season. KU football is going to light up the scoreboard, too.
You know, that's right.
I was at their media day earlier today up in Lawrence. Got a chance to see how the construction is coming.
How's it looking?
Personal. It's going to be so big, I guess is the thing. Like, the old Memorial Stadium, the footprint just wasn't very big. It was an old bowl, and it just kind of sat in place. But with the amenities that are going to be a part of this stadium, the footprint's just going to get bigger. It's going to be a much more imposing presence there on campus. And, looks good so far. I mean, I'm no architect, but I think it's going to look great in the long run. The coaches spoke today, the coordinators.
Yep.
And Lance Leipold made it official. Named Jalen Daniels as opening day starting quarterback against Lindenwood. I know that he had to really earn it. He had to prove a lot to win the job. It was a hotly contested, but no, Jalen Daniels is the guy. And Lance Leipold, it wasn't so much what he said, but how he said it. And I'm glad I was there to see the smile on Lance Leipold's face when he talked about seeing a lot of good things from Jalen Daniels in this camp. And they have kept everything with JD close to the vest, because they don't want to set expectations too high because he's missed part of and a big chunk of last year with the injuries. But I got the sense, listening to not just Lance Leipold, but also Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator today, that Jalen Daniels has had a heck of a camp.
Yep.
And that they are really, really excited to see what a healthy Jalen Daniels can do once he takes the field to start this season. They think that he's ready to take it up another notch.
And I have no doubts about that. I mean, I trust their evaluation over anyone, and we know how dynamic JD can be. Here's the other thing about it, though. This was, over the last few days, the first time that Jalen Daniels, Luke Grimm, Quentin Skinner, Lawrence Arnold have all been on the field at the same time together since JD got hurt last season. Since the last game he played. That's the first time they've all been healthy, ready to go on the field, competing together at the same time in close to a year at this point for any sort of regular amount of time. That has a chance, even though none of them are true college football brand names, as much as you can have a brand name at wide receiver in college football these days, that's got a chance to be among the best, if not the very best wide receiver room in the Big 12 this year. I mean, you know how much I love this group, and specifically Luke Grimm, but they legitimately have a chance to be that good this year. And to have Daniels back, healthy, ready to go, it just says so much about the work he has put in and about how good this offense can be. The only thing, and this was actually mentioned earlier this week by Jeff Grimes, and I know you saw him and asked about the offensive line today. Just a little bit earlier this week, he was saying, hey, they're not quite where we want them to be. And that's going to be, I think, the big question for this offense. I don't think it'll be a bad line by any means, but Mike Nowitzki was a really good college center for years and knew that system like the back of his hand. Dominic Pooney, in all likelihood, I think, is going to start on the offensive line for the 49ers as a rookie.
John Feliciano's going on IR. So, yeah, that's happening. He's going to start week one.
I don't know if it was Matt Miller from ESPN or who it was the other day who saw a clip of him posted on. I think it was Nate Tice posted a video, and Matt Miller responded and said Dominic Pooney was the steal of the draft. An offensive lineman from Kansas who transferred from Central Missouri was the steal of the draft by a guy who's covered it for 20 years at this point. That says a lot about that dude. It also says what KU has to replace.
Yes. And the leadership void left by Nowitzki was the thing that Grimes mentioned. I asked him how many linemen he felt good about starting a conference game at this point. And he said, I don't really have a number for you, but I'll tell you this. We're not, like you said, where we want to be. We got a ways to go. They're still moving some things around. They flipped Bryce Cabledew from right tackle to left tackle. He's been working at both tackle spots in camp. So they're still trying to settle that. And again, they've got 9 days until their opener, and they want to make sure that situation is settled, because if the line plays well in front of this dazzling backfield and skill talent, KU's going to have no problem scoring points. Over on the defensive side of the ball, real quick, two guys that came up and got some big praise today for having a really good camp. O.J. Burrows, steady performer.
I know
That's
you're
what
a
they
big
said
fan
about
of his.
him. I think he's going to have a big year. And Dean Miller is a guy that Lance Leipold cited as really having a breakout camp. And KU's always looking for guys like that on the defensive side of the ball, and Dean Miller sounds like he's that guy for this group.
The big thing for Dean is he needed to bulk up. He needed to get bigger during this offseason, because no matter what the skill and the technique and all that looked like, he just didn't have the size to compete in the Big 12 level regularly. I think Dean Miller and Dylan Woodkey, the transfer from Youngstown State, I think you could make an argument that those are your two quote-unquote X-factor players for this defense, because if they are decent at getting after the passer, you know what that means? Less pressure on DJ Warner, less pressure on Dak Brinkley, less pressure on Bai Jobe, these young guys who have absolute mountains of talent but are just so raw and so young. So if you can get Miller and Woodkey to give you 4.5 to 6 sacks, something like that each, plus Jeremy Robinson, who you know is a known quantity on the other side, you're fine. You're feeling so much better about this defense. That's great to hear about Miller.
And I think Brian Borland also pointed out that Dylan Woodkey's had a really good camp as well, so they've been excited about him and really feeling like they're going to develop some quality depth along that defensive line. Lots to get excited about. We'll talk more about it with Michael Swain. He was there today, too. We'll talk to him for Jayhawk Weekly coming up at 4:35. Right now, we'll take a break, come back, wrap up hour number 1 of 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. question for you guys as we wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. You think Jalen Daniels is an NFL draft pick?
I think this year will show what happens.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if he gets hurt again, no.
Yeah.
I think if he has a whole year, it's still going to be day 3. I'd assume probably 6th round because there's just too many worries about the back. As we always say, no one ever had a bad back. It's just something you manage forever. But I do. If he stays healthy for even 10 of the 12 games in the regular season, I do think he'll be drafted. There's too much talent to pass up as a late round flyer.
Yeah, barring a significant injury, like I could see him even having the kind of draft helium with a good season of like a Hendon Hooker.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody like that. Like Hendon Hooker had all kind of health issues and he was old. He got drafted anyway.
Yep.
Like Jalen Daniels, I think, will hear his name called. It might be a third-day pick, but I think somebody takes a flyer. And he could certainly play his way up because this is not a super quarterback draft coming up in 2025. That is for sure. That's a wrap for hour number 1. We're live at Yager Stadium. The Envista Community Kickoff for Washburn University Athletics is tonight here at Yager Stadium. Free to attend for families from 6 until 8 tonight. Brendan and I are out here until 6 o'clock. Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to talk some Chiefs, play What Is Wrong With You, and talk to Michael Swain at Fog.net. That's all still to come on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for being with us, spending part of your day with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video stream. Thanks to those checking out the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Thanks to those watching on Facebook, WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Brendan Rosinsky, and Spencer Dupuis with you today. We are here with you until 6. Then we'll have a little overtime until 6:30 ahead of Royals baseball tonight. Game 2 of 3 in this series against the Angels at Kauffman Stadium. Royals win the opener last night 5-3. Tonight, 2 all-star left-handers take the mound. Cole Reagans for the Royals, Tyler Anderson for the Angels. First pitch at 7:10, which means we'll hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network at 6:30. Until then, a lot of great stuff here on 580 Sports Talk this hour. We've got 2 new stories competing on What Is Wrong With You, and we'll talk to Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, for our Jayhawk Weekly segment. And still to come, Mitch Holthus joins us at 5:25 for a training camp report brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. The voice of the Chiefs will chime in with us at 5:25. Before we go any further today, Brendan is facing down some hair allegations on the YouTube live chat. Listener JB writes, Brendan's toupee looks in danger of blowing off.
Here's the thing, man. If this was fake, if this was just a rug on top of my head, it would be so much easier to manage. You just just take it off. Like, if it blew away, it would be so much easier. This is all real. Real as steel right here, folks. It is not coming off. I've got a little too much salad for the bowl currently. A little overgrown up top. As we mentioned at the top of the show, need to get a haircut. My wife feels the exact same way. And, it's breezier than I was planning for today. And by planning for, I mean I probably should have checked to see if there was wind.
Breezy here at Yager Stadium on the campus of Washburn University. We're watching a little Ichabod football practice today. And later on tonight, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., it's the Envista Community Kickoff. A perfect evening for families in the Topeka community to get up close and personal with Ichabod athletes and be part of the exciting Washburn athletics community. Create lasting memories with exciting on-field activities, playing sports and mingling with your favorite Ichabod athletes, photo opportunities on the field, fun jumps, a money grab machine, and other games on the field here at Yager Stadium, and a collection of food trucks as well, serving up mouth-watering treats with a variety of options. Best of all, it's entirely free to attend. So if you're looking for some family fun tonight, pack up the kiddos and get them out to Yager Stadium. Meet some Washburn athletes. Get excited for Ichabod Athletics. It's going to be a great fall. Football's ready for a bounce-back year. Soccer, women's soccer is the number 2 ranked team in the country. Volleyball's always good. Get psyched for athletics, get psyched for football, and enjoy a great night out here at Yager Stadium. It's the Envista Community Kickoff.
Keep mentioning this money grab machine. I have not seen a single one of my ex-girlfriends here.
No. Man, really? That's tough.
I didn't name names.
Hey, listen, what kind of people were trying to money grab from somebody who works in radio? Because, listen, that was not my experience.
Listen, some of us have been to the depths of Tinder, and it's not always right. Now, I met my wife on Tinder. It is worked out very well. She is the most wonderful person in the world. I've also had my fair share of not so great experiences back in the day.
Yes,
facts.
I also met my wife on
Facts.
Tinder, but it took some swiping. It took some swiping, some swiping and deleting to get that right. But thankfully, all three of us got it right on the apps once when the dust settled.
Every once in a while, you accidentally swipe up instead of right. You give them the super like, and then you're in too deep already. And next thing you know, that's we'll save that for Love Line.
The dreaded super like. Want to let folks know that over on our website, 580WIBW.com, day 2 of our Pigskin and Hoops football previews have been published. If you go to the website right now, 580WIBW.com, right on the front of the website, right now you'll see our video stream from our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. And then right below that, you'll see a link to the 2024 Pigskin and Hoops previews. And you can click on that. It'll take you through to a table of contents, and you can check out every team's preview as it gets published. Today, we published season previews for football for Highland Park, Holton, and Jackson Heights. And you talk about three teams that should be in line for great seasons.
Oh,
Highland Park coming off their first playoff win since 1973. Jermaine Monroe thinks it's the best team he's ever coached in 16 years of being a head coach. He's really excited about the Scots this year. And Holton has been to sub-state 4 consecutive years after a bit of a Cinderella run there last year, and they've got the skill pieces to do that again. Jackson Heights went 8-2 last year. They're hungry for a deep playoff run themselves in Class 1A, and they're going to be very formidable in the Northeast Kansas League as well. So you can read those previews today if you missed them, 580wibw.com. You can also check out the Facebook page, WIBW News, for daily links, and our Twitter account. You can follow us on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk. We're still over there posting in 280 characters or less over on Twitter. You can check those things out as well. Want to let people know that day 2 of our previews are up, and day 3 of our previews coming up tomorrow. We're doing 3 a day until next week, when we'll have a couple of days where we only do 2 because we've got 28 schools, so it's an odd number, not divisible by 3. But tomorrow, coming on 580wibw.com, we will have previews for Jefferson County North, Jeff West, and Linden, the defending state champions in 8-man Division I. So that is coming up tomorrow. Let's get into it. Chiefs. Steve Spagnuolo spoke to the media earlier today.
Yes, he did.
And I'm going to find the exact quote. I think Pete Sweeney tweeted it out. And apologies, we don't have the full audio from Steve Spagnuolo today. But this is what he had to say about the competition at cornerback. That's been one position where things don't really feel settled at the moment. Who is going to start opposite Trent McDuffie at corner for the Chiefs? And this is the quote from Spagnuolo as transcribed on Twitter by Pete Sweeney, who's the editor-in-chief over at Arrowhead Pride. I made this point in our unit meeting the other day, Spagnuolo said, that I don't believe we couldn't have, because Justin Reed, hasn't had any practice snaps. I don't believe we've had let's call it our top 11, 12, or 13 guys, whatever that is. I don't think we've had them on the field for one play. That's concerning and frustrating. I did say to them, those things are out of our control. You can't control guys getting hurt. What we can control is our conditioning and being ready to play and all that. In regard to your question about the corners, it's making it really difficult to decide which way to go. You've got one more game. Some of these guys will play that are still fighting for jobs, but we can't say that there's a starting other corner right now, in all honesty. I don't love that for the Chiefs, and I don't love it in the context of what we heard Dave Merritt say about a week and a half ago, when he had media availability out in St. Joe, and he said, I really want someone to win that job. They've got 3 guys right now who are really competing for that spot: Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, and Nazeeh Johnson. And Dave Merritt really expressed, I thought, a desire that somebody win that job outright. Look, if you're Joshua Williams, you've had all the practice reps because Jalen Watson has barely practiced. Nazeeh Johnson's been in and out of practice, hasn't played a ton. He only played in the second preseason game. Jalen Watson didn't even play in the second preseason game. He hasn't gotten on the field in a game yet. This was wide open for Joshua Williams. And I guess that's my primary concern, is that for a guy who was getting some real preseason buzz to have this opportunity, it could be all him right now. And the fact that it's not is concerning, at least for Joshua Williams. Do you feel like it's concerning for the Chiefs that nobody's been able to seize that job, or do you just feel like it's a consequence of the injuries?
I feel like I probably lean a little bit more with the former than with the latter, because here's the other thing that goes into this. We know who these guys are. This is not, okay, here's an example. This is not the Titans not knowing what they have in L'Jarius Sneed, who they just traded for, who's never played in that system before, who's brand new there, and you think, well, maybe we're going to have to come up with some sort of fill-in for a while because he's injured. That's a hypothetical. He's doing fine. The Chiefs know what Jalen Watson is. The Chiefs know what Joshua Williams is. They drafted these guys on day 3 back in that historic 2022 class. They saw both of them play a lot of snaps for that 22 championship team. They saw them play plenty, but not as many snaps last year, both as reserves, and Watson playing plenty on special teams as well. They've seen them during minicamp. They saw them during OTAs. They've seen them during, when they've been available during camp this year. I don't really think, unless they were expecting one of them to take a gigantic jump and effectively become different players this year. I don't really think there was ever an expectation that they were going to be different. It was just a matter of who's going to rise to the occasion and play their best right now. That's what this is to me, a situation where these guys just haven't stepped up and been able to play their best. So I don't really think it's about the injuries and who's been available. I think they know what they've got in these guys. And for nobody to rise to that occasion, I do think is cause for at least a bit of concern. Now, that being said, and this is, I guess, the downside of having historic, unparalleled success if you're Steve Spagnuolo, I assume he's going to figure it out. And I think that this team is going to find a way to make it shake and to find a way to make those cornerbacks work, because that's just what Spags has done with his defenses over the course of his career, especially in this latter part of his career when he's been arguably the best defensive coordinator in the league.
I think you make a really good point, Brendan. Go ahead, Spencer. But I'll get back to the point I liked. But go ahead. I want to hear you weigh in too, Spencer.
I saw something yesterday from Arrowhead Pride. Ron Cupp, I believe is his name.
Yes.
He put out a quote from Andy Reid from the press conference in his story. And Andy Reid said this: "We got some guys that can play. We need to see Jalen get out there. If he can play, then he'll play, see where he's at. Some of those other guys have grown and shown some good stuff. We'll see how it goes. It might be by committee over there, but there is some talent over there." So he's saying it might be cornerback by committee.
Makes me think they want it to be Watson.
So here's the point that you made, Brendan, that I liked, is that they do, like, two of these guys battling for this job are known commodities. It's not like you've got brand new guys in the room, don't know the scheme, haven't been out on there on the field with this other core of defensive players. Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson, there's proof of concept. This is where it's really been unfortunate for Najee Johnson, again, to have a second straight injury-plagued camp. I mean, last year wasn't injury-plagued. It was ruined by injury. Tore his ACL. He was out for the year after having a really good start to his camp. This year, I think he was hoping to build on that, but he just hasn't been able to get out on the field consistently. So there's not the proof of concept with him at game speed that there is with Williams and Watson. So even though there isn't that one guy who's won the job, so to speak, you still feel like whoever you put out there between Williams and Watson has NFL experience, can do some good things, can make some plays for you. And so maybe that leaves you in a spot where if you're Spags, if you're Reed, if you're Dave Merritt even, you're a little less concerned because you know that eventually somebody's going to separate.
Yeah.
But until that happens, you've got two guys at that spot opposite an All-Pro and Trent McDuffie who are capable and who've done it on Sundays and have done it with this group and with this scheme.
Well, here's the other thing, too, that's going to help you out in the long run if you're Kansas City. You've got a safety room that you think is going to be not good. It has the potential to be great. We know what Justin Reed is. Hopefully Brian Cook is good to go. The thing that's going to help Cook this year, and obviously it sucked that he missed so much at the end of last season because of that broken ankle, but it was a broken ankle. It wasn't an Achilles injury. It wasn't an ACL injury. Those are things that are really hard to come back from in 1 year. You might be able to get on the field, but it is hard to be back at full strength. I mean, you can look at guys all over the place. One that pops into my mind right away, Cortland Sutton, who's a wide receiver, another downfield position, but for the Broncos, his first year after returning from his ACL tear, I mean, he was not even 30% of the player he was beforehand. Now, he has gotten back to being a very effective and useful player. He's also a very different player than he was before. He's no longer beating you with speed. He's going to beat you as a ball winner. There are tons of examples of that for secondary players, too. We just talked about Juan Thornhill the other day on the show. He was never the same player after he suffered that injury. So the fact that Cook isn't coming back from one of those, it's simple, hey, a bone broke, you had to get it fixed, had to get it healed up, you're ready to go, boom, you're back out there. I assume he's going to be able to hit the ground running this season. You love Jaden Hicks and what he's bringing to the table. They brought back Deion Bush, who's mostly a special teamer, but he's not going to get you killed defensively either. The fact that you've got a safety group that you have a lot of talent with and that you trust is going to make things a lot easier on whoever ends up being both the boundary and slot corner guys.
I want to get to this, too, from Bill Barnwell, ESPN.com writer who we cite frequently on this show. Every year, he goes through the league and puts out a projection. 5 teams he thinks will improve from the previous year, increase their win total, and 5 teams he thinks will see a decrease in their wins. It is very rare on these lists to see a team that went to the playoffs last year, let alone won the Super Bowl. But the Chiefs are on this list, and the other teams that are on this list, the Chargers went 5-12. The Patriots went 4-13. The Fighting Spencer Dupuis of the Beltway, the Washington Commanders, they were 4-13 last year. And the Arizona Cardinals were 4-13 as well. It's easy to look at those teams and say, man, a bunch went wrong, because a lot has to go wrong in the NFL to only win 4 or 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
A lot went wrong with those teams. They should bounce back. Better luck in the turnover department. Better injury luck. The Cardinals with Kyler Murray, the Chargers with Justin Herbert.
Yep.
And those teams should see an increase in their wins. The Chiefs won 11 games last year, and Bill Barnwell says they're going to get better. And the reasoning behind that, one, the turnover margin. The Chiefs lost the turnover battle in 9 of their 17 games, Barnwell writes, going 4-5 in those matchups. With Mahomes under center, losing the turnover battle hadn't been a regular occurrence. Between 2018 and 2022, the Chiefs trailed their opponents in turnover margin 26 times, which was the fourth lowest rate for any team. I don't see any reason to believe Kansas City is going to be as likely to lose the turnover battle as it was a year ago. Some of that was bad luck. He points out that the Chiefs recovered just 42% of fumbles in their games, the 4th lowest recovery rate of any team. So some bad fumble luck, and also the drops. Chiefs wideouts had a 7.8% drop rate during the regular season, 3.5 standard deviations above the mean. If you're not a math person, just know that means they sucked compared to the rest of the National Football League.
I mean, all things considered, I think you can break down the same point that Barnwell's trying to get across with simply a few either or over under questions like we would normally ask on a Thursday. Which is more important? Which impacts the game more, offense or defense, in the NFL in 2024?
Offense.
Okay, offense. Is the Chiefs' defense going to be slightly worse this year than it was like? I think the defense is going to take a step back. Is it going to be a big step or a small step?
Small step, I would say.
Yeah.
If it's a step back, it won't be a big one.
Offensively, I think this offense is going to be better. Is it going to be a small step forward or a big step forward?
I think it could be a very big step forward.
That answers the question right there. That right there, that series of 3 very basic questions, I think, is the exact reason, because I agree with you on all of them, why this Chiefs team should win more games, because the offense is going to outweigh even defensive improvements and adjustments around the league, barring some sort of calamity going either way. And the Chiefs offense, I think, is going to be markedly better than it was last year, because less Kadarius Toney, even if Sky Moore is on the team, less of him. You've improved that wide receiver core. I think Rashee Rice is in for an absolutely gargantuan season. And I think Mahomes, every year of his career, he has found a way to adapt, except for one in 2021, where he was the same guy he was in 20, just facing new defenses, bounced back and was the MVP the next year and was great again last season. There's no reason for me to think this team is going to even remain stagnant or even take a small step forward. I think they are going to be largely improved, and I think that alone is good reason to believe they're going to win 12 plus.
Of the other teams on the list, the Commanders, the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Cardinals, Spencer, I'll ask you first. If you had to put a future on any one of those 4 teams to go to the playoffs this year, is there any one of those teams you feel better about, most likely of that group, to improve all the way to a playoff berth?
I don't know. It's hard to tell, because if the Commanders, like if Jaden Daniels just all of a sudden is a fly, like has an amazing season and their defense can put it together, and the NFC East is horrible. The Giants are going to be horrible. The Eagles are going to be the Eagles, but the Cowboys, who knows what the Cowboys are going to be. So the Commanders could get a wild card spot, depending on if they can get to 9-10 wins.
No,
I don't have faith in any of those other teams.
I don't think they will. I don't think that is likely, but I think they've actually got the clearest path.
Yeah.
If their rookie quarterback is great, that obviously changes things entirely for them. I think Arizona, it might have the best team, because I think they'll have the best offense of that group.
Mm-hmm.
They also play in a division where they're the 4th best team. Like, I don't think they're as good as the Seahawks still. I don't think they're as good as the Rams. I don't think they're as good as the Niners. I will say about the Patriots, I was this close to putting a shekel or 2 down on their win total over for this year, because it is so unbelievably low. Just banking on eventually May will play, and I believe he's going to be good. Also, their defense should still be great. And then they lost Christian Barmore for the year with blood clots, and then they traded their best pass rusher. So I have decided to sell all of my Patriots defense stock this year.
Interestingly enough, the Patriots are one of 5 teams Barnwell projects to improve here, along with I would actually say I think I would say the Chargers if the AFC weren't so loaded. I think the Chargers are still going to have trouble making the playoffs, but I think they're the second best team in their own division. And if they go 4-0 against the Broncos and Raiders, which is entirely possible, that's a big leg up. That's a big leg up on those teams in the North.
They've got the best coaching of those three teams.
Yes, absolutely.
And best quarterback.
Jim Harbaugh's a really good football coach. You lose it in the weirdness, but he's really good at this. And the Chargers will be back, I think, in contention at some point. But I think this year's probably a little too early. Still, of those four teams, by virtue of being the second best team in their division, potentially, they might have the best chance. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. We're live at Yager Stadium today for the Envista Community Kickoff Washburn University Athletics event from 6 until 8, a free event for the whole family. When we come back, another segment that's fun for the whole family. What is wrong with you on 580 Sports Talk? What is wrong with you time here on 580 Sports Talk? Two news stories trying to take down our Monday champion, our champion for the week. Personal foul is what Jeffrey in the YouTube live chat called it. Former NFLer Gosder Cherilus got messed up on some sleep medication, allegedly, and peed on an elderly woman on an intercontinental flight, a transatlantic flight from Boston to Dublin, causing it to be turned around after it had already been delayed 4 hours. A miserable time for everyone, but mostly a miserable time for the old woman who got urinated on by a former NFL offensive lineman.
Dog, if we're already partway over the Atlantic and my flight has to turn around, that dude ain't making it home.
Yeah.
No,
that's tough.
You're going to have to – I will answer to God after you answer to me, buddy.
For my story, we're going to Warren, Michigan, where police arrested 4 teens and an adult who reportedly attempted to steal new cars from a business on Monday. According to authorities, police were alerted about 6:30 a.m. to a group of individuals in the Ground Effects Automotive lot where several new Stellantis vehicles were parked. When officers arrived on scene, they said they found 2 new Dodge Durangos ramming the security gate to get out. Both Durangos were disabled in the crashes. Police said several people ran on foot, but officers were able to take 5 of the 6 suspects into custody. Police believe the suspects were attempting to steal 6 Durangos, and they were attempting to break the security gate so they could just drive out of the parking lot in the stolen Durango.
This sounds like a Rob Zombie song.
So the value of the attempted theft and damaged property is expected to be $500,000. 2 16-year-olds, 2 17-year-olds, and a 24-year-old were taken into custody. You could see pictures. These Durangos are ruined. They just thought they were going to drive through the security arm and just bust it through, and then the rest of the Durangos were just going to go rolling out right behind them. That is not how things work.
It's a bad area when these car dealerships already have something like that, because a lot of car dealerships don't even have anything around them. So what were they trying to do?
True.
Did they really think they could break it?
This was a very strong, arm. This was not like one of those cardboard ones that you see them drive through in the movies.
No,
that messed up 2 Durangos, and the other 4 Durangos never made it beyond that. And you got a 24-year-old hanging out with a bunch of teenagers. Come on, man.
Nope.
Get a life. First things first. Get better hobbies. Number 2, get a life, man. Hang out with people your own age.
We have not gotten a comment from Kyle Filipowski.
You're being weird.
My story for you today is going to take us to Florida. You will occasionally hear advertisements on this radio station, 580 WIBW, from organizations, from companies that say, hey, we can help with your tax problems. And sometimes I think it would help your tax problems if you just paid your taxes. This gentleman in Florida, 76-year-old Roger Whitman, could have used that advice, because in 2002, he did not pay his taxes, nor did he in 2003 or 04 or 05. You see where I'm going with this. He did not file his tax returns for over 2 decades, evading $2.4 million in taxes. Mr. Whitman of Ormond Beach, Florida, earned millions from his medical equipment business, but did not file an individual income tax return or make any payments since the year 2000, a multi-million-dollar tax loss for the IRS. He was assessed in 2012 approximately $800K in back taxes, and then he just kept not paying them in what investigators claim was an attempt to conceal his income and thwart IRS collection efforts. Whitman allegedly created a trust with his girlfriend, serving as the trustee. On his direction, she then purportedly opened 2 bank accounts in the trust's name as the sole signatory, so Whitman could deposit his business income and use the funds for personal expenses.
So he faces prison time. He owes $2.4 million for back taxes for 02 to 09 and paid full restitution for 15 to 19. So he owes a lot of money and prison time.
He is facing a maximum of 5 years in prison.
Yeah, man, just pay your taxes, big dog. That's a real easy fix. Just pay your taxes.
Prison is easier or harder when you're that old?
I'm
going to go easier.
You got less a chance having to serve your whole term.
All you want to do anyway is just sit down and read. You can do that in jail just like you can on your lazy boy.
What's the appeal of getting a prison law degree, though, when you're 76?
Boredom? Curing your boredom? Maybe you're not bored.
I'm going with the Durango dopes today.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I don't think that beats Gosder Cheryl's personal foul.
Nope.
No, he went to the bathroom on a person.
Yeah, he did. On a flight.
On an airplane over the Atlantic Ocean.
And delayed it.
An old woman. And then punched an old man. Let's not forget that part.
Yeah, he did that. Bad look. Buddy of mine used Gosder Cherilus on the Immaculate Grid today.
Very fitting.
Yeah, it was really good. 0.3%. He was in the news. We'll take a break. Come back with Michael Swain of Fog.net for Jayhawk Weekly at 580 Sports Talk. Joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Subscribe today for VIP access to get the most in-depth insider information on all things Jayhawks from Michael Swain. You can follow him on Twitter as well, at mswain247. He joins us every Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, it's nice to see you at the football complex earlier today for KU Football Media Day. What was the most interesting thing you heard out of a coach's mouth when the coaches spoke to open up Media Day earlier today?
Yeah, it was great to see you as well. Let's start the most. Well, I think obviously we've talked a lot here about Jalen Daniels, right? The fact that Lance Leipold said Jalen is trending to start. Obviously, that's good news. There hadn't been any word of any sort of like injuries or setbacks or anything like that. So it was positive that he said that. I think for me, it's interesting hearing Lance Leipold talk about kind of the defensive ends room. Obviously, it's a position that has gotten a lot of attention. It's something, Lance has talked a lot about, but he's very bullish on Dean Miller, and Dean Miller kind of being the guy who has that similar jump that we've seen from, a Lonnie Phelps, coming from the MAC and doing it at KU, from, someone like last year, like Austin Booker coming from Minnesota, not really having a lot of experience in doing it at KU. And it now sounds like, the light bulb has gone on for Dean Miller. And I think that is really interesting and really encouraging. For KU, he's someone that has the athleticism you look for at the position. The question has always been his size, and by all accounts, and look, I'm in practice, I see him moving around out there. He's a lot bigger than he has been at any point in his KU career. So I think for me, that's probably the most interesting thing. A day like today is a lot of rehash, a lot of refreshing, circling back to a lot of stuff we've heard over the last kind of 3 weeks of camp, and so it's a lot of kind of going back, doubling back on stuff we've heard. So I think, for Leipold to continue to mention Miller as that guy at the weak side defensive end spot is certainly interesting.
I want to double back to the Jalen Daniels thing, because a lot of the optimism around Jalen, there was still just a little bit of caution with it, because he missed so much time last year. Back injuries can be so finicky, but it wasn't just what Leipold said about Jalen Daniels and the camp he's had. It was the way he said it that had me thinking that he's really encouraged by what he's seeing from Jalen Daniels. I know you guys have gotten to see some at practice, but are you getting that sense too, that that maybe caution's being thrown to the wind a little bit? Now it's just optimism and excitement to see number 6 back under center when the season kicks off?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of nuanced, right? There is optimism seeing Jalen go through a camp where he has not been, limited during portions. Like, he has been full go basically from the get-go, and he's looked good. I think there's got to be optimism around that. I think there's always going to be a sense of, maybe reservation is the right word, of just, it's a player who has not played a full college football, right? He arrived in 2020 and has not been able to play a full season. So I think there's always going to be a sense of when or if something's going to go wrong. And so I think at this point in time, everyone's very encouraged with what they've seen from Jalen so far. And there are no indications that something's going to happen. Now, football is a collision sport, and you can't predict what's going to happen. But for the time being, I think people are really excited, because Jalen has looked like the Jalen that, KU fans, the national landscape, was able to see in 2022 and in 3 games last year. And so I feel a lot excited to see what Jalen can do this year. But I think, Lance Leipold and everyone around KU is also going to have their eye on his health throughout the course of the season until he shows he can do it for 12, 13, 14 weeks. And so I think it's one of those things where it's got to be a little bit nuanced. But, yeah, there is excitement about Jalen right now, to say the least.
Jeff Grimes seemed to have a little bit of reservation about the offensive line, particularly in terms of the leadership. That's going to be really hard for them to replace, losing Mike Nowitzki and Dominic Pooney. We knew that was going to be the case, that leadership, that veteran presence is always hard to replace until guys get more experience and get more comfortable in that way. But just in terms of the unit 1 through 5 across left to right in front of Jalen Daniels, Do you get the sense that that's still a little bit unsettled as well, or should KU go into the regular season feeling pretty good about who they've got protecting Jalen Daniels?
Well, you picked to listen to Jeff Grimes. I'm going to pick to listen to Lance Leipold on this. And I think that's the really interesting part about having them talk 20 minutes apart is the fact that they have very different tones on the offensive line. Where Leipold talked a lot about how he likes this line, the depth, and the talent on it. I think they probably are both talking maybe slightly about different things, where Grimes focused a little bit more on the leadership. And he's right. You know, Mike Nowitzki had been around the block and knew what to expect. You know, Dominic Cooney was in his second year last year, but he had played a lot of college football, and he's someone too that was very cerebral, right? Really understood things. And so now what's happening is there's Michael Ford, right, who's been around, but he's playing guard, and it's not the same as having a center who knows everything and has been through the wars and knows what to expect. And so I think KU's still trying to figure that out, and I think they're trying to empower Bryce Foster, Shane Bumgarner to be those guys, to be the leaders, to go out and command the offense, because you need that at the center position. It can't be someone that, you know, you're having to kind of walk through games. So I think that's maybe where there's a little bit of hesitancy from Grimes and saying it's not where he wants it to be. I think to some degree there's also a little bit of coach speak there where, you know, you don't want to be too happy-go-lucky about arguably one of the more important position groups in football when your season is a week, 10 days away. So I think, you know, again, some nuance there. I think there's reason to believe that this offensive line can be good. Will it be as good as the line last year? I mean, we're talking about a line that didn't allow many sacks, paved the way for one of the best rushing seasons the KU players had in a long time. Like, you're setting the bar really high for Kansas along the offensive line. So I think KU can still have a really, really good offensive line and still not have it be maybe where the level of last year's line was. I mean, heck, the starting left tackle didn't allow a sack all year. Like, that's incredible production from one of the most important positions in football. So I think it's kind of a two-way street. You can feel good about the position, but also willingly admit that it's not at the same level maybe it was this time last year.
Michael Swain is our guest. He covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find him on Twitter at mswain247, and he joins us every Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Real quick, while you're talking about Dominic Pooney, Michael, how excited are you that he's probably going to start for your 49ers this year?
Oh, I am loving it. It's been great to see. And I was talking to some football players today at Media Day, and it was interesting to get their take. They're looking at Dom, and they're saying, man, he looks bigger than he looked during the season last year and during camp and everything. And it's just interesting to put in perspective, like going from a college strength program, which I think if you go and ask people around college football, they would say the Kansas strength program is one of the best in the country. To going and doing it in the NFL, there is a huge difference in doing those two things. So it's been great to see Dom do well, and obviously I'm going to be rooting for the best for him.
From the offensive line to the defensive line, you were talking about Dean Miller a little bit earlier on, Michael, and I think between him and the addition of Dylan Wudke, who's gotten a little bit more hype recently, the graduate transfer from Youngstown State, I think if those two plus any combination of the freshmen between Dak Brinkley and certainly DJ Warner, even By Job, not a freshman but new to the program, if those guys can give you anything and as much as they can give you as possible, that's going to change this defense. So tell me if this statement is over the top. This defense could be, in a way, transformed by getting more production out of Miller and Wudke starting on that opposite defensive end spot from Jeremy Robinson.
So Dylan will play on the strong side behind Jeremy, and he'll provide depth there. I think for the weak side spot, I think the fact that they're going to try and do this by committee approach. Well, last year, the committee was Austin Booker and Hayden Asher. It was a two-man committee, and Austin carried a lot of that weight. This year, it seems like it's going to be a lot more rotation, and I think KU can get maybe similar numbers from it. Because I almost am not even worried about passing downs now. And maybe this is the fall camp Kool-Aid, and there will be a rude awakening at West Virginia in week 4. But I'm not even really that worried about the pass rush. I'm more worried about, hey, first and second down, can you just get to a pass rush situation with that weak side spot? Because I think Dean's going to have a really good season, and I think he's going to produce for KU. I'm just a little still. I want to see it against Illinois week 2 when they're trying to run the ball at him. Can he hold his own? If he can, all of a sudden I'm going to be coming around on the KU defense saying that this unit should be as good as it was last year, if not better, because the athleticism at the second level linebacker should be improved, and you expect guys like Kobe and Mello and OJ to take another step. So I think it's one of these things where I'm still, and I'm going to believe it when I see it, but I'm much more in the camp that I'm going to end up seeing it and therefore believing it than maybe I was at the start of camp.
In that same vein, how much confidence do you have in the interior guys? I know you've told us some positive things last season during the offseason about Withers, about Dunn. No, those are guys who are going to be relied on a bunch, among others. How confident are you in their ability to win those downs on first and second down?
I feel really good. I feel really good about that position group. That's something that talking to someone close to the program over the summer, it was kind of just summertime, BS talk. Oh, how's it going? Is there a position group that you feel, maybe isn't going to get a lot of hype, you feel really good about? And the person said defensive tackle. And I was kind of like, okay, that makes some sense. You start to look at it. You're like, DJ, started a lot of games last year. He dropped about 5 pounds in the offseason. I just finished talking to him about 45 minutes ago. He talked about how much he feels like he's a lot twitchier, which is exactly what Kansas wants from that spot that he's going to play. And then you look at the other side, and you've got, guys like Tommy Dunn. You've got Caleb Taylor, who's had a good offseason. Like, I think that's a group that should be really good. And then if you're, last year it was a good defensive tackle, no doubt about it. But if you're saying that DJ takes another step, and you're saying Tommy can maybe give you a little bit of what Devin Phillips gave you, maybe Javier Darrett sprinkled in can provide some spark that maybe Gage Keys brought you. Well, all of a sudden you're kind of looking at it and saying, man, if Caleb Taylor's better, someone like Blake Harrell was going to get some chances this year. You just think that the room looks really deep and has got some talent, and a lot of talent. It's got multiple years. So I feel pretty good about that D tackles room, and I think if they can get good production from that group, it'll take off some pressure, I think, off those defensive ends.
You brought up O.J. Burroughs a minute ago. We're big fans of his game here on this program. He is a really talented player. I think he's got the most big play potential of anyone in that secondary, next to Kobe Bryant, obviously. What is his ceiling? How good can O.J. Burroughs be? Is he maybe, does he top out at good complementary piece in the secondary? Or is this a guy who's got legitimate all Big 12 potential?
Well, all Big 12 potential is all about production. And defensive back, it's so interesting. Like, for like defensive tackles picking all Big 12 teams, I mean, good luck to the coaches. I mean, Jesus. But like for secondary players, it does come down to interceptions. And I think OJ has the ball skills to be able to do that. And by all accounts, OJ had a great practice today, had 2 interceptions. So if he is out there producing like he has in practice today, and even as of late, he's been someone that's played really well. I think he could be someone that maybe is an honorable mention all Big 12 guy if he has the type of year. The thing that's great about OJ is he's another one of these guys, and you can go up and down the roster now, which I love about college football, and say, man, you look at what this guy was as a freshman, versus what he is now. The improvement year over year is really cool to watch, and I just love that about college football generally, and just the KU program where it's at now, where it really is a development program. You see these guys come in as freshmen. You see them change their bodies. You see them buy into the culture. And all of a sudden they come out as seniors. You're like, man, it's crazy in fact what this guy looked like 4 years ago. Where 4 years ago, OJ was 165 playing against Texas and looking like a fish out of water. And then now you look at him play last year, and he's coming down making huge hits against Oklahoma. It's just a great trajectory for him. And he's a soft-spoken guy, but, we heard today about a little bit more about, they do senior speeches, and OJ was one that kind of had one from the heart, and it's one that really stuck with people because he's not someone that is out there talking all the time. So I think it's going to be a really big season for him. There are opportunities there to have big senior years if guys can just put it all together. And that's, I think, encouraging to look at this defense and just say that's going to be a possibility, because we're 6 years removed from looking at the defense and saying, man, if these guys have career years, maybe KU can be ninth in the Big 12 in defense. And now you're saying some career years here, maybe KU's in the top 4 or 5 in the defense, in the Big 12. And it's just such a huge difference.
Michael Swain of Fog.net joins us every week at this time for Jayhawk Weekly. He covers the Jayhawks for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You should subscribe today, become a VIP member, get VIP access, all of the best insider information on Jayhawk athletics coming from Michael Swain. You can also follow him on Twitter at mswain247. Michael, as always, thank you so much for the time. Next week when we talk, it'll be a Jayhawk game week. We'll be previewing Lindenwood. The season gets underway next Thursday at Children's Mercy Park. We can't wait to preview it with you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It's about dang time. Too much talking. Let's watch football.
Yeah, we're done talking. It's time to pop the pads. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. That is Michael Swain. We're going to take a quick break, come on back, and wrap up this 4 o'clock hour 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio here on 580 WIBW. Before we wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk, let's run through another set of Big 12 football win total over-under. Spencer first, then Brendan, then yours truly. We did the first 4 teams alphabetically yesterday. Let's do the next 4 today. Cincinnati, over-under 5.5 wins this year, Spencer.
We remember my beef with Cincinnati, so I'm going under.
Scott Satterfield is the worst coach in the Big 12, under.
Yeah, I feel like they did upgrade their roster talent-wise, but I don't think it's going to be enough to overcome the fact that Scott Satterfield is their head coach. I'm going under 5.5 wins. Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes, over under 5.5 wins. Spencer.
Besides Travis Hunter, who else is elite on that team? Not really Shador. I'm going to say under at 5.
I'm going under 2. I think they beat North Dakota State week 1 and still go under.
See, I'm kind of leaning toward them beating North Dakota State. That's a little bit of a diminished program from like the Chris Kleiman years, but they're going to go to Lincoln and I think get beat by Nebraska. Not that I think Nebraska's great shakes, but that's going to be a very hard road game for Colorado. Colorado State's going to be a very hard road game for Colorado. I just, again, don't think they have the manpower in the trenches. They will be better on defense. Offensively, I don't think they got meaningfully better in the trenches, and I think Shadur is still kind of a mess as far as drop back passer. Sacks are a quarterback stat. He took a lot of them last year. Houston, over under 3.5 wins, Spencer.
Give me the over at 4.
Their roster is not good, but you know what they do have? Unlike Cincinnati, a great coach. I'm going to go over as well. That's a really low total for a Willie Fritz team.
I haven't looked at their non-conference schedule, but if it's manageable, I think they will go over. They'll win a couple they're not supposed to win. And finally, Iowa State, over under 7.5 wins, Spencer.
That's a hard one for me. I'm going to say the under at 7.
I am going to go with the over. I'm buying in on the returning experience and Rocco Becht.
Iowa State is destined to win 7 games every season, no matter what the expectations are. So I will take the under. 7-5 soon come for Matt. 7-5 Campbell. That'll do it for this hour. 580 Sports Talk. Coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. Headlines, Mitch Holthus, and a Royals preview live from Yager Stadium at Washburn University. This is 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on video on Facebook at WIBW News, and on Twitter. Our channel is 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero and Brendan Wierzinski on location this afternoon. We are at Yager Stadium, the home of the Washburn Ichabods, where tonight from 6 to 8, it's the Envista Community Kickoff here under the lights. A perfect evening for families in the Topeka community to get up close and personal with Washburn athletes and be a part of the exciting Ichabod athletics community. There'll be food trucks. There'll be games on the field. There'll be Washburn athletes hanging out with your kids. There's a money grab machine, giant Jenga, and it's completely free to attend. It's just a fun night out here at Yager Stadium. I see one of the food trucks pulling up right now.
Yeah.
So, the food trucks are starting to arrive. The event starts in an hour. Parking is free. It's a barbecue truck.
Those three little letters every person loves to hear, BBQ.
It sends my antenna up as soon as I see those letters. I can't tell which truck it is. Some trucks I can tell by sight anymore, but you see them out so frequently. But that one I can't quite tell. But it is a barbecue truck. So there'll be all kinds of food trucks out here, fun games on the field. Great thing to bring your kids if you're looking for something fun to do as a family tonight. And again, entirely free to attend here at Yager Stadium on the campus of Washburn University. It is the Envista Community Kickoff from 6 to 8. We hope that you will come out and join Washburn Athletics for this great event. Coming up later on this hour, Mitch Holthus joins us, voice of the Chiefs, for another training camp report. It's rookie week on the training camp report. Today, we're going to hear from Kingsley Suamaitea, the starting left tackle for the Chiefs. We'll also preview the Royals-Angels game tonight, but we start with our 580 Sports Talk headlines, and we start with a couple of Royals-Angels related headlines. First off, it's not great news for Royals reliever Hunter Harvey, who suffered a bit of a setback in his return from the back injury that has been placing him on the injured list for the last week and change. He received a cortisone injection today, according to Ann Rogers of MLB.com. That'll keep him away from baseball activities for at least 2 to 3 days. But Matt Quatrero told the media today he is hopeful that they can get Harvey back throwing by the end of this week. Royals could certainly use the boost to their bullpen that a healthy Harvey would provide. Unfortunately, he really hasn't been fully healthy since he was acquired from the Nationals a week before the trade deadline. So a setback for Harvey, his return not imminent. Be interesting to see what the Royals do when he comes back. And if he doesn't come back until the roster expansion, they don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. But if he comes back before the rosters can be at 28, they're going to have to make a hard decision. Maybe it's a brief demotion of a guy like Zerpa. Maybe it's the DFA of a guy like Chris Stratton. It'll be a tough decision coming up for the Royals in that regard, but a couple of days more away from baseball activities for Hunter Harvey. Here's the Angels news. The Angels had not named a starting pitcher for tomorrow's series finale, but it's going to be an old friend. Johnny Cueto is still pitching. Did you know this?
No, I had absolutely no idea that he was still pitching, in fact.
Johnny Cueto made 13 appearances for the Marlins last year.
That makes sense.
This I did remember. He was terrible. In 52 and a third innings, he posted an ERA over 6, and he gave up 17 home runs in 52 and a third innings. He had more home runs allowed than walks, which is wild to comprehend. Apparently, he's been pitching in the minor leagues this year for Texas first, and now for the Angels. Been pitching at AAA Salt Lake. 13 minor league starts this year, a 4.76 ERA, and the 38-year-old Johnny Cueto, who, of course, helped the Royals win the 2015 World Series, will start against the Royals tomorrow night, making his Angels debut. He will be, that will be, the sixth different team that Johnny Cueto has pitched for in his major league career.
Well, good for him. Still cashing checks.
Yeah, still kicking and still pitching. And we'll see how that goes for him tomorrow night against the Royals. Tonight, the pitching matchup, 2 All-Stars, current All-Stars. Cole Reagans for the Royals and Tyler Anderson for the Angels. Tomorrow, though, it'll be Johnny Cueto for the Halos. That's my first headlines. Brendan, what do you got?
Let's get to some Big 12 news for today. Number one, involving also a certain very popular NFL quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. He is now the namesake of multiple office spaces at the Texas Tech football facility. The offensive coordinator's booth, as well as the quarterback's meeting room, are now both named for Patrick Mahomes. I do love how much he reps his school still to this day, even though they sucked while he was there, which should be impossible. Like, you watch that. He won a Super Bowl with a bottom 5 wide receiver room in the NFL and a left tackle situation that could be described most favorably last season as And yet Texas Tech finished with a losing record while he was their quarterback, which says two things. One, that program might be cursed. And two, Cliff Kingsbury, you are not going to see the pearly gates. He is not a very good football coach. Good quarterback guru, not a very good football coach or play caller. That being said, it's cool that Mahomes keeps repping them, and they have steered all the way into all things Mahomes. They have changed to Adidas as their apparel company, pretty much only because they are paired with Mahomes. They have named spaces in their football facilities for him. They've got his logo now, his personal business logo, at midfield at Jones A&T Stadium in Lubbock. And additionally, there was one other I was going to get to. Oh, yeah, they advertise at Arrowhead Stadium. There's a Texas Tech ad on the big board at Arrowhead Stadium. So
and on the Chiefs preseason broadcasts.
Yes, and they advertise on TV. You're exactly right, Spencer, during the pregame broadcast as well. So they continue to steer into the Patrick Mahomes brand, and honestly, I would too. I find that to be a very intelligent thing to do, to be frank with you.
They may rename the program. They may rename it the Texas Tech Mahomeses by the time it's all said and done. They've just given themselves over completely to him. I just, like you mentioned, they had a non-winning record with Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback, and yet the coach who couldn't win in college with Patrick Mahomes got an NFL gig.
And keeps getting them.
Yes, keeps getting cushy gigs.
Do either of you two know where he is now?
No. Is it Alabama? No.
Wait, you're talking
Spencer,
about Cliff Kingsbury?
I am talking about Cliff Kingsbury.
He is
you should know the answer.
offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders.
I saw a tweet yesterday that Terry McLaurin in the preseason has lined up for 29 snaps, 28 of them all on the same side of the field. Spencer, when I say I have concerns about Jayden Daniels, part of it is the fact that I think his offensive coordinator might be brain dead. Not Jayden's fault. I will give him that. That is not Jayden Daniels' fault. Also, from the Big 12 today, a couple of notes from Oklahoma State. It's very funny that these two are tied together. Number one, this was reported today. Oklahoma State players during the football season are going to have QR codes on the back of their helmet on a sticker. And you can, if you pause your TV and then get really close to it and put your camera up to it, it actually will lead you directly to the general NIL fund at Oklahoma State, whatever their collective is. So if you see Ollie Gordon run for a sick touchdown and think, wow, that totally just cashed my 18-leg parlay, I'm going to throw some scratch his way, you can actually do it by scanning the QR code on his helmet.
They're so small.
They're very small.
You even in the front row of Boone Pickens Stadium, I don't think they're big enough where you could scan.
No way.
The QR code. Like, it's outside the box thinking, but it's basically just as impractical as the time that Will Ferrell's character had a Fig Newton's ad across his dashboard driving NASCAR across his windshield.
That is a very funny scene, though. Also from Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, you'll never believe this, being a little curmudgeonly about NIL and the new era of college football.
No.
He had a quote yesterday. He said, quote, "The good news is the next 5 months we can just play football. There's no negotiating now. The portal's over. All the negotiations are history. Now we're playing football. The business side of what we do now, we have to have those conversations with the players. Tell your agent to quit calling us and asking for more money. It's non-negotiable now. It'll start again in December. So we're now looking to direct ourselves just in football, and that part is fun." It should be noted that Oklahoma State infamously was one of the first schools to be hurt by the new redshirt transfer portal rules when wide receiver Jalen McClendon played 4 games and then essentially before week 5 told Mike Gundy, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm transferring. Bye." So it is very funny for Mike Gundy, of all people, to say the portal is over. I don't really think that's how it works.
No, I think he's extremely wrong about that. And he's going to find out once Ollie Gordon leaves his program, just how much it's going to hurt to be wrong. All right, Spencer, what's your first headline today?
Yeah, I got a fun headline. We talked at length recently about the college football 25 coming out, how that game was coming back. Another sports game coming back from our childhoods, or some people's childhoods. Dan, you said you didn't play it much, but backyard baseball is coming back. Playground Productions, a production company dedicated to creating family-friendly content, announced Tuesday that the beloved video game series is returning in the coming months with the same aesthetic of the games released in the late 90s and early 2000s. So I believe you will see the same characters like Pablo Sanchez or somebody with a Sanchez last name potentially. Fun fact here, somebody I went to grade school with is on the promotional team for this. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And this is very timely, too, considering Bobby Witt Jr. was just using his Pablo Sanchez bat the other day.
So let me defend myself a little bit. I was aware of the backyard series of sports games. I don't know if I was technically aged out of them. I just liked the ones with the real players better. Like I liked triple play baseball or whatever, like high heat, whatever baseball game was popping before MVP baseball and then eventually MLB The Show. I wanted to play with like the real players, all the real players. I wanted to play with them more than I wanted to play with like small children.
Counterpoint, from 2001 onward, they did have pros in the game.
This is true.
Ken Griffey Jr. was incredible.
Yeah,
I've seen the footage. Like, it's very funny. Like, every team got a player.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a fun artifact of that era. You look back and, all my favorite stars. Jose Canseco, Barry Bonds, Marty Cordova of the Minnesota Twins.
That's always who I think of is Marty Cordova.
So, like, the games were obviously very cool. I love how nostalgic people are for them, and I'm excited that people will be able to enjoy those games. Just don't make me into some kind of Grinch because it wasn't my speed when I was 12, 13.
No, I didn't mean it like
Grinch.
that.
I think he's just calling you old.
I just meant I talked to you about it earlier, and you seemed to be like, "Oh, well, that happened. I didn't play that." And I'm pretty sure this isn't confirmed, but he did talk about it on New Heights. I think Jason Kelsey is somewhat involved in this.
So I actually can tell you he is not. I read the press release, and the guy who's essentially running this company that's making it said Jason Kelsey is actually not involved. However, it's good to know that former athletes are excited about this, and they would like to have him promote it. That's essentially what it comes down to.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of former athletes who will be excited about it. They had a lot of – I didn't realize until fairly recently I saw like a video about the series. I didn't realize they had backyard – soccer, skateboarding, hockey. I remember even basketball I didn't know existed. Genuinely had no idea. I knew about baseball and I knew about football, but I didn't know about any of the others. I had no clue.
Oh yeah, no, they were great. The commentator for the football game was Chuck Downfield. Awesome. Tremendous stuff.
That's really funny. Next headline for me here in our 580 Sports Talk headlines, we have more developments in the Brandon Ayuk saga that has captivated the football watching public. Jordan Schultz reporting today that the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk have had another meeting yesterday, and talks are continuing to progress between the two sides on a long-term contract extension. There has been movement on a deal, but there are still some minor details that need to be ironed out with ownership approval. So I guess now, like, the arrow, I think it's the New York Times. They got the projection arrow on election day. Like, it is now X% likely, and it's like a little dial who's going to win the election, what's going to pass or whatever it is based on the polling and the voting. Now I guess the arrow, the Brandon Ayuk arrow, the New York Times used a Brandon Ayuk arrow, and I think it is now pointing towards San Francisco, maybe a little bit more so than it is pointing towards Pittsburgh.
It seems to be. I don't know. I felt like four different ways about this. I thought he was for sure going to New England. I thought it was going to be Cleveland. I thought it was going to be San Francisco. Then I thought it was going to be Pittsburgh. Now I'm back to San Francisco. I don't know. It's a very complex situation. Although here's a fandom take for you, Dan and Spencer. I've seen so much like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this story. I don't care anymore. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you rather talk about Drake May taking like 3 snaps in a Patriots preseason game? Would you rather talk about the most meaningless football of all time and all these, like, most teams not even playing their starters? Is that what you really care about? Or would you rather hear about a guy who's actually a really good player that might leave the favorites to win the NFC again? That means more to me than a lot of preseason chatter that is just mindless. And all the injury, oh my God, so-and-so suffered an injury today. Oh, it's actually not that bad. He just clipped the toenail. Like, that's what you get during the preseason. I would rather have more news and more rumors about a guy who's actually going to impact games.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. This is a very loud commercial just fired up on the Yager Stadium Jumbotron, kind of jolted both of us. I guess I understand, like the Take Industrial Complex.
Yeah.
You got to feed. Yeah, there has to be grist for the mill, and you think this is just the most attractive grist at the moment. That maybe there was nothing to this all along, or and I always felt like, again, the 49ers are smart. This is not a franchise that I would expect to do something dumb. This is a smart, winning organization.
They are.
And you know what smart, winning organizations don't do? Trade wide receiver one in the middle or in the late stage of training camp.
I agree.
So it has never added up to me that this could possibly be true, but there was so much smoke around it that I started to think, okay, maybe the Steelers are going to get this over the line. Now it feels like maybe that is not the case. That is the latest development anyway. The 49ers are working hard with Ayuk on a possible contract extension. We'll see where it goes from there.
One more real quick one before we get to Mitch Holthus. I missed this during our Big 12 roundup a moment ago. Cincinnati has named their starting quarterback, Brennan Sorsby, the transfer from Indiana. Probably their best option. Again, though, their coach is Scott Satterfield. My expectations are below the floor.
Yeah, they were so miserable last year.
Oh,
I made a lot of money betting against Cincinnati football last year, and I don't see any reason why that trend shouldn't continue.
He's better than Emory Jones. I will give him that.
Oh, yeah, he's much better than Emory Jones. There is no question about that. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Coming up after this break, Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, joins us for a training camp report. And that is up next from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio here on 580 Sports Talk. 526 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Brennan, and Spencer with you live on location at Yager Stadium this afternoon at Washburn University for the community kickoff. We are joined right now via telephone by the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, for a training camp report brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. Contact Crystal Rippey, Kirsten McCall, or Kristen Ambergy about the credit union advantage in getting your first or next home loan. And Mitch, you don't always like to put a lot of pressure on a rookie, but anytime a rookie is going to start at an important position on the gridiron, there is pressure that comes with that. And at the same time, you don't draft a rookie that you don't think can handle the pressure. And the Chiefs very high on their second-round draft pick out of BYU, Kingsley Suamataia, and they have handed him the reins at left tackle, and he doesn't seem like he's looking back.
You could argue that the two rookies with the most pressure will be at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium Thursday night. In what looks to be a really good rookie class of 2024, but Caleb Williams being 1-1 and the Bears going all in on him, and the fact that he's looked good in the preseason, he won't play Thursday night, I don't think. But he's going to be under a lot of pressure to take the Bears to another level and compete in the NFC North. And you could look at Jaden Daniels and others, but really Kingsley Suamataia, when you look at him defending the blind side of Patrick Mahomes, it's pretty crazy. The fact that he's been handed the assignment of doing so. Now let's go back to the beginning of camp. We started our reports 3.5 weeks ago, and we talked about there was a battle, really. They were expecting a battle between Wanya Morris and Kingsley, and that separated really pretty fast. Wanya had some injury issues, but Kingsley showed more progress quicker than I think people thought he would. So Kingsley, and I asked him, like, all this on the plate, it doesn't seem too big for him. He doesn't seem cocky. He's not cocky, but he also doesn't lack confidence.
Just being aware. It's a lot of film study. It's a lot of staying on top of my tasks and knowing what everybody's doing, not just my job. So just seeing the whole field on how Patrick sees the field and just being all on the same page, all 5 of us across the board on the O-line. So
I think fans maybe overlook at how important is footwork, hand placement, just being precise in everything you do.
Most definitely. It's down to the little things, where you put your hand, where your eyes are looking at, where your feet are, what steps you're taking, how big of a step you'll take on this play. So it's a lot of hard work. You just got to put it in and day out and, put your best foot forward against the guy you're going against.
I think against the maturity shown there, in college football, you can get by as a blocker without being precise. You can get by on raw athletic talent on a left tackle position, or many times you're not asked to do all that much because so many teams are throwing and you're in a 2-point stance. Not in this offense. I mean, you have to be very precise. And the fact that he already gets it this soon of every little thing matters, and to study about who you're going against, and in your eyes and hands and feet. He's played better than I thought he would at this point. He's played 31 snaps in anticipation of this interview. I went back and looked at all 31 snaps, 4 against Josh Allen in Jacksonville, so those were kind of real life. And yes, it's the preseason, but he's doing much better than I thought he would at this point.
What is maybe the trait, or what are the traits for Suamataia that give him the chance to be successful right away while he does go about learning the nuances and becoming an NFL player? Like, there's a lot to being a left tackle in the league, and you're kind of dependent on some of your raw ability. Which raw traits are the ones that are most impressive for him, you think, that give him a chance to be successful right away?
Well, he's athletic. He's very athletic, and we've seen it downfield on screens, and you're going to see him pop some blocks and get some big plays for guys reaching the second level on run plays or screens. So I think the fact that he is athletic overall, he's a mauler, so I think that's a plus for him. But in this offense, you're going to have to, and look at the guys he's going to be going against. I mean, the Max Crosby's, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, all those dudes are coming after him. and they'll try to influence him, mess him with his mind. But I think there's power there and athleticism. And I think from a physical standpoint, that's his two biggest attributes. But mentally and emotionally, I see more than I just didn't know him. And he's really in training camp. He's jumped up because of those two areas. It's not too big for him. He doesn't act like it's, he's drowning or underwater. He's like, bring it on. But he also is not cocky, because that'll be a quick way to not succeed. There's no a lot of discussion anymore about, let's give Wanye. It's Wanye and Kingsley and Wanye. It's Kingsley, Suat-Matia all the way. So, hey, here we go. I know on his report, though, his draft report, one of the scouts, not our scouts, it was somebody else, a Blesto scout maybe, that put, I hope he's not thrown to the wolves right away. Well, that's what we're doing. He's going to the deep end of the pool on the first day of swimming lessons.
Talking to Mitch Holthus, and pull the trigger at the right time that time, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us for our Chiefs training camp report here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. We do it every single day of the week during Chiefs training camp. And Mitch, I was all in on drafting Kingsley this year, and Dan will tell you the same thing. I was all in on him as a first-round pick. I thought if the Chiefs stuck at 32, I would have been very happy with him there, given the kind of talent, the upside, and the need for the Chiefs for a future left tackle as well. When your conversations with people, Chiefs brass and people around the team, how much of a steal did it feel like for this franchise to land him in the second round?
Yeah, and honestly, there were some people that had first round grades on him. There was that feeling of like, wow, we're getting a quasi first round talent where we got him. So, I think there's value in this, along with those two fourth rounders that we're going to talk to the next 2 days. That for sure, Kingsley, and right now, it sure looks like he's got the potential to play to a first round pick.
As you mentioned, he's kind of being thrown to the wolves here because, hey, if you're that good of a player right away and you win the competition, well, you get the privilege of getting to go up against some really dang good players right away to start your rookie season. But how much is it going to help Kingsley here, starting off his career, to have Joe Thuney just off his right shoulder?
Yeah, that's going to help a lot. And really that whole room, whether that's Creed or Trey, and even Jawan Taylor, looks, if he can get healthy, is way more comfortable this year in this system. All those guys, that's a band of brothers now, and they all help each other big time. They'll watch tape and they'll exchange ideas and watch video. And Trey really, especially, I think, has really got an inner coach in him. That's where I thought Wanye would jump up. Part of this discussion is a little bit of disappointment about Wanye Morris. And Kingsley didn't win it by default, but where's Wanye? I mean, they're going to need him at the least to be a strong swing tackle candidate in case there's injuries to either the right or left tackle, and even maybe play some guard. And that may be where Wanye over time is headed to, is the guard position. But I really thought Trey and Creed would help Wanye more to this point. But I do think that, and Kingsley's willing to learn. A lot of times you get some cocky dude and he's like, okay, yeah, whatever. He'll listen, but not really listen. I think Kingsley soaks it in. So he was trained well at BYU. If he plays to the level of a rookie of his first cousin, Panay Sewell, who had 1,038 snaps as a rookie and was the first team all-rookie selection and a perennial Pro Bowler, then we're good. But right now he looks closer to, I'm not saying he's Panay Sewell, but I'm not saying he's not. And the bloodlines are good.
Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us for a training camp report brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. One more question about Kingsley and the offensive line as a whole, Mitch. It's continuity is so valuable on the offensive line. When you can have a core group of guys who you're bringing back year in and year out. The Chiefs now, this will be the third straight year, I believe, or maybe the third in the last four at the very least, where they've had a new starter at one of the tackles. Orlando Brown was brought in 2021. Last year, you had two brand new tackles with Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor. Now this year, Kingsley at left tackle. You spoke about the experience of Tooney and also the experience now of Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. How important is having that continuity on the interior, and especially at center with Creed, to help new players be able to integrate themselves on that offensive line, and for the group, the five fingers, to make a fist and not miss a beat? Mitch, did we lose you?
Yeah, here we are. No,
All right.
It's a
Having some technical difficulties with Mitch Holthus. Maybe a phone issue with the voice of the Chiefs. Mitch, are you able to hear us? All right, we're going to cut it short there then with Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, joining us again for a training camp report brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Jura Credit Union. We lost Mitch there in the ether. Mitch has been with us throughout training camp and will be with us again tomorrow for yet another training camp report. Spencer, is that confirmed? We've lost Mitch? Okay, so we will have Mitch again tomorrow, same time, and we will learn about another rookie for this Chiefs team. And it'll be a mystery to us as much as it's a mystery to you, who we'll be talking about tomorrow.
We do know it'll be one of the fourth rounders.
Yes, we know it'll be one of the fourth round picks.
Which one, though? Who knows?
Tune in tomorrow at 5:25 and find out with all of us when Mitch Holthus joins us again. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk, come back, and preview tonight's Royals-Angels contest. That's coming up here on 580 WIDW. 5:42 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Brendan, Spencer running out the clock on this edition of 580 Sports Talk, though we do have some overtime up until 6:30 when we'll hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network. 7:10 first pitch tonight between the Royals and the Angels. Royals going for a 6th consecutive win. They enter tonight 2.5 games out of first place in the AL Central and tied with Minnesota for second place in the division and for the second wild card spot. More about the Royals in a bit. Brendan, you had another point you wanted to make about the Chiefs based on what we were talking about with Mitch Holthus in that last segment.
So it actually just sort of spins off of what we were talking about, because I went back to Matt Derrick's rosterology, his 53-man roster projection he's got over at ChiefsDigest.com, and I wanted to look right now just at what his projection for who makes the team is going to end up being, who the 9 he has on there are. But I actually ended up scrolling down a little bit here. Do you remember when we looked through Nate Taylor's projection for the roster last week?
Yeah.
And he very clearly said, I would not be surprised if the Chiefs looked into making a trade. They've got all this cap space at defensive end. Remember that?
I do.
You know who else mentioned that in their roster breakdown? Matt Derrick. So the two best tied-in Chiefs reporters, 2 guys who we have on this program who we trust a whole bunch, including someone we talk to every single week, said, yeah, quote, it still wouldn't be a surprise if the Chiefs explore a trade or the waiver wire for an edge rusher who can hold up against the run. That is, again, very significant that 2 people who have covered this team for a long time with a lot of connections both came to that conclusion about that group.
That is interesting. I don't know, like, obviously there's not much trade value for some of the guys at wide receiver, but I wonder if, like, that could be like, hey, we got too many wide receivers. They're not all going to make the team. You've got too many defensive ends. They're not all going to make the team. This is the guy we liked when you drafted him, but he's kind of on the fringes of your roster. You know, maybe we can make something happen. Maybe there's a Sky Moore for a defensive end kind of trade or something like that.
The Chiefs love to make moves like that. You know what they landed in that exact kind of trade prior to the 2018 season?
That was the Charvarius Ward trade, right?
That was Charvarius Ward, who they acquired, who was a undrafted cornerback. Do you know what they traded to get Charvarius Ward, who is now a very handsomely paid NFL corner?
Parker Enger, who I'm sure is enjoying his life, whatever he is doing. I just know it isn't football.
Parker Enger, if I could spell or could type into the bar.
I bet he's got his real estate license and the whole shebang.
All we know is that he is a former NFL football player. That's all we got on Mr. Parker Enger. Yeah. So the Chiefs are certainly willing to make a deal like that. And the fact that both Matt and Nate are reporting that make me think that it is at least there have at least been discussions, maybe nothing imminent, maybe nothing likely, but there have at least been discussions if both of them are reporting that.
Very interesting. We'll see. Once Thursday night is done, Chiefs, obviously, everybody's got to get down to 53. There's only the one cut now, so you go from 91 to 53, which is tough. But, yeah, teams are going to have to make some snap decisions, and there might be an opportunity. Maybe it's even with the defensive back. Maybe somebody like a Kelvin Joseph or somebody who, we really like him, but there's not room for him on our 53. Wide receiver, it always seems like the Chiefs have a bunch of guys. Like last year, who was it? With Smith-Marset.
Yep.
Like
Amir Smith-Marset.
Yeah, somebody they really liked, they shouldn't have room for. Maybe they
should have kept him last year.
Yeah, maybe they could use a piece like that this year to acquire. There will be a team in a similar scenario with edge rushers. And you're not going to get an elite guy there, but another guy to add to the rotation that you might feel a little bit better about. Royals-Angels tonight, game 2 of that 3-game series. The Royals, again, winners last night by a 5-3 count. Tonight, they send Cole Reagans to the mound. And we had our concerns there about Reagans and his velocity being down as he hit a career high in innings pitched. But with 2 extra days off between starts, he came out his last time out, and he was back looking like the Cole Reagans of April and May. He was touching 98 with the fastball. He had the good velo. He had the good strikeout numbers, and he pitched an outstanding game. In fact, his last time out, really his last 3 starts have all been good, but it was the velocity that was the concern. And if that's back, if he's been able to recharge a little bit and get back to that upper 90s velocity, then that's the thing that takes him from good to great.
Yep.
He can be good without the premium velocity, but when he's got it, that's when he pitches like an ace. And that's what he was his last time out. That started this 5-game winning streak for the Royals. And he'll hope to continue that tonight against an Angels lineup that isn't all that fearsome.
No, they're not. Over the last, so we had been talking about, as you mentioned, the Reagan's issue with velocity and what's going on here. He, in his last start against Minnesota, had his best fastball average velocity in over a month's worth of starts. Not since the end part of June 24th, had he averaged that fast of a fastball on average. So, average on average. That's a really intelligent comment right there. But you understand my point. It had been a while, but he has, quiet as it's been kept, actually been quite good over the last 3 starts. Those have, in the month of August, he's made those 3 starts, 19 innings pitched, 7 runs total allowed, but only 4 of them earned, 21 strikeouts, just 6 walks, although none of those came in his last start. 4 of them came in his first start in the month. And for those keeping track at home, those 21 strikeouts in 19 innings pitched, that would equate to 9.95 strikeouts per 9 innings recently. So he is back to being the all-star that and dealing and throwing the stuff like the all-star status he earned in the first half of the season. Meanwhile, by the way, the other all-star that the Royals are facing tonight, Tyler Anderson, not exactly a game to write home about his last time out. 5 2/3 innings, gave up 7 earned on just 6 hits. Struck out 8, but also walked 4.
The ERA lies a little bit for Anderson, a 3.30 earned run average in his 147 1/3 innings, but a fielding independent pitching number over a run higher. He's not a bat misser.
Nope.
He walks more guys than you like, close to 3.5 per 9, and he gives up more than a home run per 9. So he can be had. He's a kind of a typical crafty lefty. He's going to cut the fastball. He's going to throw the changeup in any count.
Mm-hmm.
He can be tough on his day, but certainly this would be a pitching matchup that on paper you would expect the Royals to have the better of. The lineup supporting Reagan's tonight, Michael Garcia's in the leadoff spot at second base, followed by Witt, Pasquantino, and Perez, shortstop, DH, and first base, respectively. So Sal's at first and Vinny's at DH. Hunter Renfroe back in the lineup in right field, Freddie Fermin behind the plate, Paul DeJong at third again. Dairon Blanco back in the lineup against the lefty. He's batting 8th in left field. Garrett Hampson will be in center batting 9th. So Royals loading up on the right-handed bats against the southpaw Anderson tonight. The Angels will go with Taylor Ward in left field, Zach Neto at short, Nolan Shanuel at first. Kevin Pillar, the veteran center fielder, batting cleanup, a right-handed bat against the lefty Reagans.
All right.
He is a lefty killer. Logan O'Hoppe bats 5th, the catcher, followed by Anthony Rendon at 3rd, Brandon Drury, the DH, Joe Adell in right field, and the very real Jack Lopez at second base.
No, that you want to talk about backyard baseball? That's a backyard baseball name.
That is a backyard baseball character.
One of the short kids with the flat head.
There is,
it's Jack Lopez.
No question about that. Again, pregame coverage starting at 6:30 on the Royals Baseball Network. First pitch is set for 7:10. We're going to promote this event we're at here, supporting here at Yager Stadium at Washburn University real quick. Want to get back to the Top City Metal Supply text line. Shouts to our friends at Top City Metal Supply. Text from the 785 about that defensive end trade possibility. And I think this is a good point. I would personally be kind of disappointed in a D-end trade, says our texter. We drafted Felix, re-signed Dana. We got Charles Omenihu coming back. I don't want to lose capital for a rental defensive end. I would not like the idea of trading like a future 5th or a 6th to go get a defensive end. I much prefer the idea of being able to trade surplus from one position to add to depth at another. If that's something that the Chiefs can swing, I think that's a good idea. But like last year, they traded the 6th rounder for Neil Farrell, and Farrell may still yet come good, but he didn't help the team last year, and you kind of burn a 6th round pick a little bit when you do. I mean, they're 6th round picks. They're only but so valuable. But like, if it's a 7th or a conditional 6th for a guy, like I could be talked into that, but I much prefer the idea of trading a player for a player if it's a position we've got a bit of a surplus at and we can help add some depth.
I think there is some important context to that because I in a vacuum, I do agree. I think it depends on who the player is. Like if you're getting a guy who's good enough to start right away, I'm making that trade. Honestly, I'll move a 5th. I'll do it if it's a guy who you know is going to start right off the rip. I think the other thing this really speaks to, though, is that there are some legitimate concerns about Felix and DK Uzama. And if you are saying this is all hypothetical for now, but if you're going to say we're willing to move a middle of day 3 pick, a guy who generally 5th, 6th rounders, you're talking about your special teamers, you're talking about guys who fill out the bottom quarter of your roster, guys who you maybe don't expect to play a ton, but to do something for you. We're willing to move that for a guy who can help us play right now. That says to me there are some legitimate concerns about how Felix Anudike-Uzomah is developing. The other thing, too, though, that's worth at least pointing out, if the Chiefs think we're going to go get a 5th or a 6th round conditional pick because of who left this year in free agency, they didn't sign that many big dudes. Like Hollywood Brown was the big signing, not 1 year. Drew Tranquill was the biggest signing. He was already on the team.
Right.
So they might be saying, hey, we think we're going to end up getting a conditional pick at that point anyway. We don't need 2. Let's burn 1 on a flyer.
Want to remind folks to come out to Yager Stadium tonight for the Envista Community Kickoff. Great family fun event. It is free to attend. There are food trucks. There are games on the field, fun jumps, a money grab machine, cornhole, giant Jenga, and your chance to mingle with your favorite Washburn Ichabod athletes, and get excited for the Ichabod athletics season from 6 to 8 tonight. So it's about to start out here at Yager Stadium, the Envista Community Kickoff. We appreciate them having us out here tonight. One final break. The final word is next on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up, walking off with a final word here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, hit us with one.
Final word for me today is I'm very excited for this Cole Reagans outing. It's always my favorite day of the Royals week when Cole Reagans goes, but I feel like he is hitting a late season resurgence here. I'm a believer it's going to continue. And just like we talked about with Seth Lugo last night, he needed that bounce back against the Angels. There are few teams you would rather face when you're looking to really surge forward than the Los Angeles Angels, save for maybe the Chicago White Sox.
Spencer Dupuis, your turn.
Yeah, so yesterday I made some predictions on the show. I will no longer be really making those predictions because one was about to come true, and then 2 more runs were given up by Seth Lugo there on a couple hits there in the 7th inning. But I was almost close. 7 innings, 1-run ball. It was 7 innings, 3-run ball. Still a great outing for Lugo. Looking for another good one tonight from Cole Reagans.
Final word for me, number 1, Spencer, get ready to taste the pain as my Rockies go to D.C. to take on your Nationals this week for 3 games. Actually, the only pain will be anybody who bothers to watch that matchup between 2 of the worst 3 teams in the National League. My other final word is this. Lance Leipold looked like somebody who knew something no one else did when he was talking about what he's seen from Jalen Daniels at practice the last 10 days, and that could be nothing but a good sign. He looked like the cat that ate the canary talking about JD6. I think the young man is healthy and in for a huge year. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk, live from Yager Stadium at Washburn University for the Envista Community Kickoff. Coming out here from 6 to 8, and be back with us tomorrow at 3 for 580 Sports Talk.